our formal business tonight, I would like to welcome Amy Stokes to lead us on tonight's moment of reflection in giving a brief 3-minute talk on the work of the Listening Service project in the high schools.
Hello, my name is Amy Stokes. I work for the Church of England, and as part of my role, I go to various areas in the diocese and help churches to effectively get engaged with children and young people. And my year in Bromsgrove essentially looked like networking and getting consultation and figuring out what the needs were. And now we have what we call a listening service, so that is where a group of volunteers go into the local high schools and give up their time and just listen to a young person. So that isn't, they're not trained mentors or anything. They have that training in DBS and safeguarding and stuff, but they're just people that want to give back to the younger generation. So that's what the listening service is. And we have support from obviously the Anglican parishes and Bromsgrove Baptist, and also the YMCA and the Community Safety Officer.
We'll just wait for the remaining councillors to come in and then start the meeting.
Madam Chairman, may I ask a question? What time are the Labour Party due to come into the hall, to the chamber, please?
No, someone is getting them. Welcome everyone to the full council meeting of the Bromsgrove District Council this evening, the 23rd of January 2019. Could I please remind everyone to turn off their mobiles or put them on silence? And I would also like to remind members of the public gallery to conduct themselves in a proper manner with no heckling or disruption to the meeting, please. And lastly, I would like to bring to your attention that this evening's meeting is being filmed for a new Bromsgrove Community TV channel, which is in the process of being set up, and this will be ongoing. There are notices around the chamber this evening explaining the protocol for this. Agenda item 1, to receive apologies for absence. And I have received apologies from Councillor Mrs Griffiths, Councillor Mike Webb and Councillor Les Turner. Are there any other apologies, please? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, and Councillor Blur is running a little late, but he'll be with us shortly.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any councillors to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or other disclosable interests they may have on the agenda, and to confirm the nature of those interests? None. Thank you. To confirm the minutes of the accuracy, the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 21st of November, pages 1 to 20. And I will take these page by page. And these are for accuracy only. Page 1. Page 2. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Top of page 2, Councillor Thompson noted that with regard to minute 5218, as his motion in respect to waste collection services, it had been recorded that there had been a lengthy discussion. At the time, I proposed that there had not been a lengthy discussion. Myself and my friend Peter talked about it. We agreed, and therefore for there to be a discussion there had to be some disagreement. No one else had a chance to speak, and therefore for accuracy I said, as it says here, that this was inaccurate. However, below it says it is resolved that the minutes of the meeting were approved as an accurate record. Can I ask whether that was changed or whether you disagreed with that proposal? I'm looking a lot better looking.
I apologise, Councillor Thompson. Amanda wasn't at the previous meeting, but she has said that that resolve should have been subject to the preamble of law, so she will make sure that's changed.
Thank you very much.
Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 8, was it?
Yes.
Councillor Hertham.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'd like to say good evening to all the councillors, and maybe the public as well. Mine is, this is all about accuracy, and the top of page 8, I said that Worcestershire County Council was aiming to save £32 million. That's actually now become obsolete. It's now actually 57 million. Can that be changed to 57 million?
No, it's what is at this meeting.
Chairman, it was an accurate record of what was discussed at the meeting, which is the purpose of the minutes of the
Can I
situation.
apologise for that inaccuracy on my part and emphasise that the figure should be 57 million?
Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Page 12. In regards comments from Councillor Cooper, I know there's a little bit of doctorate jealousy that mine's postgraduate and his is undergraduate, but he does like to have he does like to have an occasional pop at my academic record. But could it be minuted, please, that the portfolio for finance, who actually later voted for my motion, did criticise me for my lack of research I'd undertaken. That's not minuted here. And actually, we do have it on our recording for our own Labour Party channel, if you do want to see it. This was recorded last time.
Page 13. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, also on Labour Party's channel that was recorded last time, we have both evidence of the leader and the deputy leader attempting to initiate a shutdown of the discussion on business rates, which hasn't been minuted at all. Had that have happened, then we wouldn't now be having the overview and scrutiny and the short, sharp review into the business rate scandal, and I think that's worth minuting for accuracy as well. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, and page 18. Can I have the proposer, please? And a seconder.
Happy to second, Madam Chairman. Good
All
evening,
in
Councillor.
agreement. Thank you. Agenda item 4, to receive any announcements from the chairman. I have two announcements. I would like to remind all present on the forthcoming Holocaust Memorial Service to be held next Monday, the 28th of January, here in the Parkside Suite at 11 o'clock. I'm pleased that there are so many schools within the Bromsgrove district who are taking part in this memorial service, and I do hope that you will be able to join us on that morning. And the second is details of my next fundraising event. It's a tie evening for my chosen charity Bosom Friends, and that will be held on Friday 22nd of February at the Beacon Restaurant in Worcester Road. Details, I believe, have already been sent to councillors. Can I ask the Head of Paid Services whether he has any notices?
Thanks, Chairman. I have actually got one this evening. Councillor Thompson has raised an issue with Claire Felton as Head of Service for the Elections team, and as I thought it would be useful to confirm the position for the members generally. The issue is regards to postal vote identifier refresh letters. Apologies for reading from this, but to make sure I get it right. It is a legal requirement that every 5 years postal voters are written to and asked to provide a new specimen signature for their postal vote identifier. It is a further requirement that requests are sent out during January for the period of 31st of January the preceding year to 30th of January in the current year, i.e. 31st of January 2018 to 30th of January 2019. Mail is sent out through downstream access where a third party prints and sends out the letters. Unfortunately, when creating the letters, the operator omitted to add the request of a reply paid envelope to the electronic order, and this wasn't spotted before sending to the printers. This led to approximately 1,400 letters being sent out on 17th of January without a return envelope at a cost of circa £500. Officers were made aware by callers on the 21st of January, and since it is a legal requirement to send a reply paid envelope, it was decided to rerun the batch. This was done on the 21st of January. Electors that called the office regarding missing an envelope were given an apology and asked to wait for the replacement letter to arrive. Moving forward, any large mailing will be double checked by another officer before an order is sent. Our apologies to all members and to those sort of disadvantaged by this, but also thanks to Councillor Thompson for raising the issue with us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Head of Paid Service for that. I know this isn't the area to ask him questions, but I would like to ask the leader whether he was aware of it and whether he agrees with me that problems do exist like this when morale is low.
Councillor Tomorrow, do you wish to?
No, I wasn't aware of it, and I do not agree with the morale. Can't hear you.
Right, shall we go to agenda item 5?
No,
I don't think the public can hear the reply, Chairman.
I said no, I was not aware, but I did not agree with the assumption about morale.
The question was specifically was he agree with me that things like this happen when morale is low?
Councillor Mrs Baxter.
Apologies to my back to the camera. Mine is purely a question. I'm assuming that this council is not going to be responsible for any of the costs of this, and it will all be paid by the third party.
Through each other, it's not a third party's responsibility. The Chief Executive has explained that a member of the elections team has made a mistake. That's what's happened, and we've put the mistake right, so it's the council's fault that this has happened. It's a member of my team.
Sorry, it would be useful then to know what the cost is to the council.
Councillor MacDonald.
If I can just comment on this point about morale being low, my understanding is morale is low, and I believe there's been a few walkouts by the GMW and the unison union from working policy groups, etc. So it seems to me the disputes going on in this council, morale is low, and I think we're going to see some more mistakes being made here, there, and everywhere.
Councillor Mrs May.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I don't think that's very good for morale to actually be standing in the chamber and saying that's a double-edged sword, may I suggest, Chairman? I have nothing to substantiate in nothing to support in terms of the morale being low. Human beings make mistakes, and unfortunately this is a genuine mistake, and we have to accept it, take it on the chin, and apologise most sincerely to our residents. And I think it's fair to say that we have now put in place issues that will prevent this happening again. Thank you very much.
Agenda item 5, to receive any announcements.
Chair, I do have significant evidence here from a contact today which says that morale is very low. And given the discussion and given the denial of this, I would ask the leader to meet with me to discuss some of the very serious concerns that are coming up from members of the council about morale and other matters that I won't raise right now in the chamber unless he wishes me to. I'd ask him whether he'll meet with me and perhaps the head of paid service to discuss these.
Okay. Councillor, agenda item 5, to receive any announcements from the leader.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have 3 points to report on. The first one is that I eventually got a reply from the Ministry of Health when I've written to them about car park charging. It was obviously delayed in the post because it was postmarked the 14th of December and it arrived on the 31st of December. Anyway, unfortunately, the letter outlined the reasonings for charges for hospital car parks and quoted all the relevant acts that gave them the authority to charge. But at no time did the letter address the affordability question, which I believe was the crux of what I've written and asked. So I have drafted a reply, which I'm happy to read out to the Council. I've said thank you for your letter dated the 14th of December in response to the issues I raised regarding the cost of hospital car parking at Worcestershire Acute Hospital NHS Trust. While I note the explanation you have provided, when the Overview and Scrutiny Task Group on Hospital Car Parking Fees carried out its investigation, one of the main findings was around affordability in light of the high level of fees charged. I can only reiterate on behalf of the Council that the problems with affordability of hospital car parking charges represent a genuine source of concern for our local residents. I understand that this is a concern that affects many other areas of the country, and it is disappointing that the current guidance has not been updated since 2015. Accordingly, I would ask again that this issue be considered and that an urgent review is undertaken of the current guidance with a view to either eliminating or significantly reducing the level of charges for hospital car parking. I intend to dispatch this letter this week with a copy to our MP. The second item relates to a perennial problem, highways. We have been urged continuously to go and talk to the leader of the County Council, and before Christmas I did knock on his door with couple of other members, and I'm pleased to report that we have made progress in our dealing with county highways. At this meeting before Christmas with the leader, the chief executive and other officers of the County Council, the outcome was their agreement to carry out a strategic traffic assessment in the north of the county with immediate effect. We are already seeing signs of recordings, and this is a positive sign. Councillor May has reported that Worcestershire LEP are supportive of this as well. I consider this to be a positive first step, and we have a follow-up meeting this Friday, and after this meeting I will ask officers to do a briefing note for circulation to Cabinet, group leaders and the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny. I am hopeful, I'm not counting any chickens yet, but it's a step in the right direction. Final item, I have to report that there will be no portfolio update at this meeting of the Council. I made this decision and notified the group leaders so that as part of the rescheduled report we can provide all members with a position statement regarding the future management arrangements in delivering leisure and cultural services in Bromsgrove. Many of you will be aware that the current head of leisure services, John Godwin, is taking up a new role as Managing Director of Rubicon Leisure, and I am sure you will join me in wishing him well in his new role. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Mallett.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the leader for his report. I just wanted to pick up the second item on highways with him, and I think experience would say it's probably wise not to be counting his chickens just yet on that one. Bearing in mind, hopefully in scrutiny, we've been waiting months and months for some answers to some very basic questions. So hopefully this renewed spirit of cooperation from Worcestershire Highways, I'd suggest to the leader, first of all, would extend to paying the bills that this council's had to incur from Mont MacDonald, hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money to put right the mistakes of Worcestershire County Council. So I would ask him perhaps to go back and knock on the leader's door again and say, where's our money? But secondly, I would urge him to seek some advice from the local community before we say, yes, let's go ahead with the strategic highways assessment on the terms Worcestershire suggests. Because we know that Worcestershire have done a number of strategic highways assessments, new transport models, again wasting hundreds of thousands of pounds of Worcestershire taxpayers' money to produce things that a community group in this town demonstrated were an absolute nonsense. And what's more, I wonder what happens if the strategic highways assessment that Worcestershire are now offering demonstrates that the A38 scheme is the wrong improvements in the wrong place and don't meet the needs of our local plan. I would urge the leader to continue to pursue with his colleagues these meetings with the leader of the County Council, and I'd be very happy to join him in one of those meetings in the future.
Councillor Peter MacDonald.
The leader perhaps is spinning something here in not being quite frank and honest. Because what you're saying is already been declared by the county some months ago. It's the first stage in the investment regarding improving the access on the Eastern bypass. And the first stage is to carry out a highway assessment of North Worcestershire around there. So you put the spin on something misleading. You've achieved nothing. That statement you've actually stated here, what you've actually stated here, was stated by the leader a couple of months ago when he was bragging about the money got from the government to improve the A38 Eastern bypass. So you're just spinning the yarn. That is completely untrue. You have gained and achieved nothing. That wasn't already there.
Councillor Van.
Shall I say, Madam Chair,
sorry.
in answer to the Councillor and Councillor Donald, that we took with us a list of headings that we wanted to be part of that review, and that has been accepted. So it's being done with our guidelines rather than theirs.
Thank you for your reply, Councillor Lyon. Can you assure me that a full review of the Western Relief Road and the need for a Western Relief Road, sometimes called the Western Bypass, will form part of this? Because if it's not in there, you've let this council down, because it is council policy that we should have this.
I'm not aware of it. It's not. I'm not aware of it.
Councillor Van.
Thank you. Yeah, coming back to announcements, I'm sure we would all like to congratulate Alvechurch Parish on the successful adoption of the neighbourhood plan this month. It's the first one for Bromsgrove District Council. You know, what a great example that they've set. So just wanted us to acknowledge that in our announcements. Great engagement from the local community in support of that.
Councillor Cleather.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'd like to start with that one. As Chairman of the Handling Neighbourhood Plan, I would like to congratulate Alvechurch Neighbourhood Plan. And I think it is...
This has got nothing to do.
It's announcements that have been missed, right? The leader is leading this district. Alvechurch is a very part of this district. And it's got about part of its planning objectives by bringing in the neighbourhood plan. It's worked and the community have worked very hard on that neighbourhood plan, and it deserves recognition from yourself, Madam Chairman, and also from the leader. So basically what you're saying is that the rest of this district isn't bothered that these communities are putting together these detailed plans. It hasn't come here as a formal recognition. On the other matter about the highways that what the leader's doing, overview scrutiny was a couple of Mondays ago. If that had been enhanced to the leader, that should have come to overview and scrutiny as an update. This item is on the agenda this evening, and thank you, Councillor MacDonald, for raising that, because I wasn't aware that these discussions had actually happened with the leaders. My motion is to take away that comfy conversations between political group leaders and put it to overview and scrutiny, so there can be an independent cross-party investigation of the whole sorry affair of the partnership that we have to abide by with Worcestershire County Council. So we're bearing that in mind when I present my motion later on this evening's agenda. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Nothing about parish councils or self-congratulation here. I want to return to the issue of Councillor Whittaker. I thank the leader for notifying me that Councillor Whittaker couldn't be bothered to deliver his report today. I would remind the leader, and I would remind the council, that the portfolio report is a responsibility of the portfolio holder and not the head of service. And I would like also to remind the council that it is part of our constitution that we hear a portfolio report every full council. There's a major breaking of the constitution there. But even if the portfolio holder needs Mr. Godwin to hold his hand, given Mr. Godwin must have served several weeks, 12 weeks notice, I'm sure there was ample time to put something together. And I think this is particularly disappointing, given that we will be discussing his pay rise a little bit later in the council meeting. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Hotham.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually wanted to do something which has been fairly unusual, and alongside the neighbourhood plan, congratulations that Councillor Van der Plank has mentioned. I'd like to say a big thank you to the Bromsgrove Strategic Planning Department and all the effort they put in to get this done. These things are a huge undertaking. The parish council have put in lots and lots of work, and they've been ably supported by not only their consultant but also Mike Duffy and his team. And I'd also like to ask the leader, bearing in mind the vagaries of the postal system, will he be posting his letter recorded delivery back to the minister?
Not a bad idea. Probably goes on with the Home Secretary.
Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, go back on.
Yeah, in light of portfolio holder, Madam Chairman and leader being in breach of the Constitution, which he clearly is, can I ask how much of his allowance is handed back to the council because of his failure to meet the duties of a portfolio holder, which he miserably has? He thinks it's funny turning up today, not giving a report when the Constitution says he should. You're not a fit person to be a portfolio holder, and the best thing you can do is hand back the allowance because you are not earning that amount of money.
Madam Chairman, can I just say something? I know this is silly season and we're all going out to election, but we've got an agenda here, and I think we need to adhere to it for the general public so they can understand where we're going. Thank you.
Agenda item 6, to receive comments, questions or petitions from members of the public. And I have got before me 3 questions which will need to be raised, and I'm allowed 3 minutes for each question. Can I have Martin Benbow, please?
Good evening. Chairman, I'm Martin Benbow, and I would like to comment on a motion on notice, the Motor Neurone Disease and Charter, to be heard as agenda item 11 this evening. I'm a campaign volunteer for the Motor Neurone Disease Association. I'm accompanied today by Dr. Anita Sharma-James, who's the chairman of the Worcestershire branch of the Motor Neurone Disease Association and also a Bromsgrove resident. The motion is being proposed by Councillor Jenkins. I'd like to thank her and also thank Councillors Sherry and Denaro for being supportive when I contacted them previously. I'm a local resident, I live in Hagley. My personal interest in the motion is because my father died from motor neurone disease. Motor neurone disease, MND for short, is a cruel disease. It is one that is rapidly progressing and always fatal. It attacks the nerve endings and makes it impossible for the brain to send signals to the muscles. Sufferers end up living in a shell of a body, unable to move, communicate or look after themselves, and eventually unable to breathe. Life expectancy after diagnosis can be very short, and 1/3 of people die within 12 months. There is no cure. We're currently aware of 3 cases of MND in the Bromsgrove district. The short life expectancy is one of the reasons that it's so important that all stakeholders have a clear understanding of MND and the role they can play to deliver speedy care and attention. When you only have 1 year to live, 1 week is a very long time to wait for an assessment or a piece of equipment. The Motor Neurone Disease Charter calls for 5 simple rights: early diagnosis and information, access to quality care and treatment, to be treated as individuals with dignity and respect, the right to maximise their quality of life, and the right for carers to be valued, respected, listened to and well supported. As a district council, I believe Bromsgrove has an area of responsibility in relation to housing and disabled facilities grants. Because the disease progresses so rapidly, it's essential that people living with MND get any adaptations to their homes made as quickly and easily as possible. We'd also like to raise awareness of the disease within the council and its staff in order that support for sufferers and carers can be provided in a timely manner. Adoption of the Charter would send a message that you are supportive of the rights set out within. Across the UK, 81 councils have adopted the Charter to date, including nearby Wyre Forest District Council and also Worcestershire County Council. The Motor Neurone Disease Association and its Worcestershire branch provide some local services and support which can complement the role of the council. We would welcome the opportunity to work together with the council in the future. Chairman, I will ask the council for their support when Councillor Jenkins proposes a motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Member. The second question is from Kyle Daisley. Oh, thank you very much, Maria. I'm very sorry about that. Right, we're going to question 3 from Peter Rendell.
I'd like to put the following questions to the portfolio holder for Community Safety, Leisure and Cultural Services. As it looks unlikely that the Council will ever reach an agreement with BAM for the use of the school sports hall, isn't it time to consider refurbishing our sports hall for badminton, football, military circuit training and other community activities? Isn't it worth replacing the lights and switching the heating back on so that the disability groups, like Keep On Moving, can continue to use it?
Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you for your question. As you are aware, the decision to build a new leisure centre was taken way back in 2014 and was based on the fact that the inclusion of a sports hall was not financially viable within the facilities mix. Last year, the question re the sports hall was looked at again, and the decision was eventually taken to not proceed with either the refurbishment of the existing facility or to build a new facility adjacent to the new leisure centre. That decision was based solely on the fact that it was not financially prudent to proceed. The present situation is that the heating for the sports hall is taken from the main building of the Dolphin Centre, and when the system was switched back on in the autumn, it wouldn't work. We are advised that it is beyond economic repair. There is also leaks on the roof, which at times of heavy rainfall are allowing water to gather on the hall floor. These problems will lead to increasing health and safety issues on site and mean that we cannot operate the services in certain circumstances. It is estimated that these repairs would amount to a minimum spend of some £15,000, for which there are no guarantees or warranties in place that if these works were undertaken, they would resolve the issues facing. Given the age of the building and the increasing cost of keeping it open to the public, it it is clear to me that it is now uneconomical to repair, given that the usage of the hall has significantly reduced and that the demolition of the Dolphin Centre and the sports hall are currently being assessed. Work, however, continues to get a signed agreement with BAM, and I hope to be able to have some news in the near future. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
So he speaks. I've lost count of how many times he said work continues to find an agreement with BAM. I think the public have as well. They've been saying it for 4 years. So it doesn't have any substance, Councillor Whittaker. I know that Councillor Sherry has links to keep on moving through Chatsgrove, and I would be wondering what her opinion was that this group are doing their activities in a cold, heatingless building. Maybe she can amplify what she thinks of this situation. But basically, Councillor Whittaker, what you're saying is we have a sports hall with insufficient lighting, insufficient heating, and you're saying we're going to do nothing about it. So we have communities in Bromsgrove using this with water dripping in and no heating and no lighting, and your solution, just to put on the record, is we're going to do nothing. That's what you're saying, Councillor Whittaker. Is that correct?
Madam Chairman, I don't believe I need to answer that question. The question was asked by a member of the public, to which I've given an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If the portfolio holder isn't prepared to answer members' question, then perhaps we could ask that those questions that members wish to ask is then brought forward to the next overview scrutiny board, so that it can actually be reported back through this mechanism. And my question would be, if the building isn't appearing to be fit for purpose, then why are we continuing to have it open? If there's health and safety issues at risk there, that building should be closed, and therefore we should be claiming a void allowance for a building that is not used.
Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I applaud your indulgence on this item. I'd just like to read out a statement by Councillor Jeff Denaro that after the last time that this issue was revisited and the administration refused to take action. He said,
My apologies, Councillor Law. I'm a bit puzzled about the forward and backwards of this. I thought the Constitution gave the right for the public, a member of the public, to go in and ask a question, for the relevant portfolio holder to answer the question, and if it's unable to answer the question, to give the answer back in writing.
The Constitution also says you should do a report.
There are no questions from the floor following this. I wonder if the officer could clear that up for me.
Thank you. If we follow the Constitution, I'm going to insist that Councillor Whittaker has his report, his portfolio report.
Yeah. I believe it doesn't have to be every meeting, Councillor, because there's not enough of us.
I read the Constitution before this meeting. I read the Constitution before this meeting. I read the Constitution before this meeting. It clearly states that every council meeting, every full council, and Mrs. Felton will confirm this, there has to be a report from a portfolio holder. Now, if Councillor Taylor is going to insist we follow the Constitution, then I will insist, and I'll have him stand up and make his portfolio report. I love that this is being recorded, by the way. I think you're coming across terribly.
Right, we'll go on to agenda item 7, please. Councillor Law, please be very brief. We've got a lengthy agenda to go through.
I'm trying, Madam Chairman, but if Councillors keep
can you be very brief, please?
Madam Chairman, to paraphrase Councillor Denaro and that question to follow to Councillor Whittaker, we said throughout that we wanted a sports hall, but we were unable to justify building a brand new one effectively just for daytime use, when there was already a full-size sports hall next door at the school that was made available on evenings and weekends. They have changed their tune on whether this is about money or usage every time a question has been asked. They first said it was that there was enough provision in the district. Now they're switching to the fact that there's no money. If they'd have built one in the first place, it would have costed considerably less money, and they shouldn't have hid behind the Sports England report. You've lost us our sports hall. Your incompetence has done that, and I really hope that people remember that in May, because you've lost the sports hall. You've ruined one of the best facilities that this town had, and shame on you for changing your story time in, time out. You hid behind the Sports England report, now you can't get the deal. I think Brexit will be sorted before you get a deal with BAM, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and you should be ashamed of what you've done.
Agenda item 7, recommendations from the Cabinet. Excuse me, I've moved on to the next agenda.
I'm just wondering, the question from Tal Mason, it is there. I wonder whether we could still ask it, because it's unfortunate that
No, I'm on agenda item 7, recommendations from the
Madam
Cabinet.
Chairman.
Pages 21 to 22.
It's customary as this council to applaud and thank the members of the public for putting the question. We did that for the item 1. We didn't do it as it went to the portfolio holder. So I think as a council we should thank them for item 3, Mr. Randall, for his question.
Right, I'll thank Mr. Randall for coming along with this question. Thank you. Agenda item 7, recommendations from the Cabinet, pages 21. And this is a Cabinet meeting of the 5th of December. And the ones for the 16th of January are on your supplementary papers. And the Cabinet meeting, the recommendations, and this is the meeting of the 5th of December, Councillor Kit Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We are looking at the response to the Wye Forest local plan, and as I said at the Cabinet when we discussed this, I'm afraid I have to apologise to the council because we have submitted the officer's report. Because if we waited until now, we would have been out of time. They're fully aware of timing issues. So the officer's report is in, and all we need to do is sort of say, well, yes, we agree with it, or disagree with it. Regarding our actual response, I'll be fairly brief on it because it's been around for a while, and there is a report behind this. And I would say that the best one to look at is 6.1, where it states, it is the view of Bromsgrove District Council that unfortunately the Wye Forest local plan is unsound. Bromsgrove District Council does not consider the plan is justified, effective or consistent with national policy. Now, I can expand on that briefly in the fact that the objection focuses on policy 12, which is the strategic infrastructure, and policy 13, which is the transport and accessibility in Wye Forest, and the evidence base which purports to support them. Most notable, the infrastructure and delivery plan and the transport modelling report. It doesn't take a great deal of reading or a great deal of looking to sort of see that they've actually made no provision whatsoever of the effect on our district. If you look where Kidderminster is, there's a road leading to Bromsgrove, it's called the Kidderminster Road. That's one way to come in from Kidderminster. But there is also another way which is straight through Hagley. Now, without proper mitigation, they have obviously made a stab at it. I think that's probably the nicest way of putting it, by sort of saying, well, put in a bypass. There is, which is a very nice thing to have, but there is no data, there is no statistics, there is, well, to use a phrase, there is no nothing behind this plan to enable us to approve it. We will be, as I say, opposing it, and on the actual little form that we fill in, which is mercifully brief, we have actually ticked the box saying that we would like to participate in the examination. So, having put the objection in, we are entitled to turn up and take part in the full examination. I'd also like to thank Councillor Jenkins and Councillor Colella for spending the time at Cabinet to come and give us a off the ground or on the ground, I'm not quite sure which way to put that, view of what they think the effect of Hagley would be. And it's not often I agree with either of them, but in that respect I do actually agree. So if you could just sort of agree with the summary of proposals, just trying to work out which piece of paper I'm actually looking at. The offered response to the Wye Forest local plan review pre-submission plan will be approved by Council as its formal response, and that is confirmed with the Wye Forest District Council, and that B, that delegated authority be given to the Head of Planning and Regeneration to ensure the Council is represented in examination in Parliament public element of the White Forest local plan review. If we don't object and we don't make it absolutely formal, we're going to be in all sorts of trouble. So I would urge you to support this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you very much. Councillor Colella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to thank the portfolio holder and the strategic planning manager for their detailed response to the White Forest plan. And yes, I echo the portfolio holder's comments. This is absolutely unprecedented. Is that two district councils from the same county should have polarising opinions as regards the transport plan. And part of my motion, I'll be detailing the thoughts behind that, of which hopefully I can persuade this council to support that motion so we can get an absolute definitive response to the whole issue about county highways through the European scrutiny. But the points that the Councillor Taylor has highlighted is absolute. It fails all sorts of tests, which is the most basic need for any planning authority to deliver, and it really is finger in the air guesstimates type of stuff, which doesn't look good at all. So I think it's only one way that plan is going to go, and that means a whole set of reconsultations that follow. But thank you for your time. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Just some clarification. In the line that we're against, or the Councillor Taylor's against the White Forest plan, does this affect Councillor Colella's motion later in the meeting? How does it impact the two together?
Not in my opinion.
No, I think. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I think that's part of the content of my delivery for support, seeking support for the motion is the reasons, what the building blocks to why, for example, this particular issue came to light, and therefore why one district council had to object to another ones that are neighbouring. So I think it's part of the discussions that we'll have later.
Councillor Hootham.
Thank you, Chairman. My concern is that I looked through the papers, and when I turned to page 49, I saw we started on question 4. If we will look at page 49, well, certainly it appears the independents have been shortchanged on paperwork. We seem to move from page 47 to page 49. Where is page 48? And the questions that come before question 4. And the other thing that is concerning me is every single page is stamped confidential. So is it confidential? And if it's not confidential, why is it stamped confidential?
It's not
So where's the new copy then?
well, that's confidential when it's produced. It's not. Yeah. Thank you.
So why was it confidential when it was produced and it's not there?
Because it wasn't in the public domain at the time. It's now in the public domain.
Does that mean that page 48 is still confidential?
No, well, page 48 will probably go to
Questions 1 to 3 are confidential.
No. It starts. It's a general blurb. I can probably find the actual form.
Could you read it out
in front of me? Yeah, half a moment. Basically, the actual form, which I don't know if anybody can see, the first few pages of basically say White Forest District Local Plan, and then it comes into the questions are basically the local 3 questions: legally compliant, sound, compliance with the duty to cooperate. If you offend have got good eyes, that's the cross that we've done. So the actual report until it came to be considered as confidential because it wasn't in the public domain, because we had to approve it to get it out there. If you're with me. Well, you could have copies now if you like, or you can look on the website.
Maybe we could put it up there.
Maybe we can do that next time. But it's a case of basically whether it says confidential or not. It is in the public arena, and we're voting either accept it or we don't accept it. If we don't accept it, we're going to look bloody stupid. Excuse the expression, Madam Chair.
I shall have to have a box. Are there any other questions for Councillor Taylor? Councillor Terry, do you want to sum up in any way?
Madam Chairman, I think my last statement said it all.
We'll now put this recommendation to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation? Against? Any abstentions? Recommendation is approved. And the next one is the Finance Monitoring Quarter 2 report.
Right, Madam Chairman, thank you. I want to congratulate Councillor Thompson on reminding us he has a university doctorate, but I'd like to reassure I have one too, not just a basic degree. So there are two of us. We must stick together. Three PhDs. PhD has three of us.
Everyone's boasting, aren't they?
No, to more serious matters, Madam Chairman, apologies for that digression. The finance report, monitoring report to Cabinet for Quarter 2 is on pages 67 of the agenda papers. This report outlines the Council's financial position at the end of Quarter 2 in September 2018. It is early in the financial year to draw a conclusion, so my only comment is that the Council seems to be on target to achieve a modest underspend for the year. However, on table on page 58, it suggests that the Council make a surplus of over £500,000. This is rather misleading because the figures in the table now include Section 31 grant given by the government for offsetting the cost of the small business rate relief. The Council was not certain that it was given the grant this year, so it's not in the original budget. The apparent surplus will go into balances. So the Quarter 2 report was produced for Cabinet and is tabled for information for Councillors. However, there's one accounting issue on page 57 that needs Council's approval today. It will not have any impact on the Council's overall budget position. The Council has received funding for a government-promoted district heat network feasibility study. A district heating network is a cluster of buildings supplied with heat from a central plant via a network of pipes. I would be happy to send a briefing note on the study to any councillor who is interested. The Cabinet is asking Council to approve the recommendation on page 21 that there is an increase in the 2018-2019 revenue budget of £59,000 for the Bromsgrove District Heating Feasibility Study. This is to be funded by a grant of £40,000 from the Government Heat Network Development Unit, a grant of £5,000 from North Worcestershire Economic and Development and Regeneration, and a grant of £14,000 from Worcestershire LEP. I so move.
Thank you for seconding it. Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Can we just have some amplification on what this heat network development would be? Are we talking about it having a focus on social housing? Is it for private housing? Or is it part of this building company that the council are doing? Just some amplification and details on who it would affect and who it will benefit would help us make a decision on whether we would support or be against this. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Just to say that I don't think any of that, it's very early stages. I will send Councillor Thompson the briefing paper, but I know very little about what these networks are, except they have been around for many years in some areas. So I think any councillor who's interested, I will send the information to. But it's not specifically directed at any particular target at the moment, that's my understanding. And this is a government initiative which we are taking part in. Thank you.
Councillor Margaret Buxton.
Thank you, Chair. In regard to the Finance Monitoring Quarter 2 report in general, I'd like to ask something about the proposed pay model, which is there are some people who could broadly be classed as losers, I think 18 number, and I wondered, A, if there's any transitional arrangements going to be put in, because Quarter 2 report is part of it, and B, what unions are going to be involved in the consultation that goes with this.
This will be covered in a further Cabinet recommendation. It's as part of the medium-term financial plan. So we'll come back to that, if I may, Councillor Buxton.
Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Chairman. I would welcome the information from Councillor Cooper about the proposed district heating system. It's a pity we don't know what it's related to, whether it's one scheme, the proposed houses at Working Lane, or is it district-wide? The second question about that would be, it's a feasibility study, but it's a huge amount of money, £60,000. Is it going to be done in-house by Bromsgrove council personnel, or is it going to be splashed out to more consultants? Thank you, Chairman.
To answer Councillor Shannon, I think a confusing thing about it's district as in an area, it's nothing to do with the district council. So that's the first thing. This is something the government and various other agencies outside the district have asked us to do, and the money is coming from entirely outside the district, so there's no impact. And it is an outside agency, I gather, that is being employed to do it. But Councillor Shannon will have the details when I'll send them to him.
Councillor Cooper. Councillor Hotham.
Thank you, Chairman. My question relates to page 59 and the financial commentary there about keeping my place safe and looking good. About halfway down the bullet points, there's a projected shortfall in planning applications of 164,000, and strategic sites have been delayed due to highway considerations. So we've already heard from Councillor Mallet that the highways of Worcestershire County Council have cost us many hundreds of thousands of pounds in additional consultancy fees, but we're also seeing here that they're costing us significant sums in reduction in planning income. I wonder what the portfolio holder thinks, who is responsible for that. It really is the Highways Department, and can we ask for that additional money to be placed on the bill back to Worcester County Council?
Councillor Trooper.
Shall I answer that? I mean, this is the end of September, it's the first thing, and it's only, the papers are here for information as they were seen in Cabinet, but because of this business of the heating feasibility study, there will be a Q3 soon. As I think will become apparent when we look at the final medium-term financial plan, the points that Councillor Hotham raised are very pertinent about the effects of house building, or the lack of it, or the reduction in the years to come. But I don't want to say any more about that. This is old data, but the points he are pertinent and will be revisited. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Paxton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Back to the feasibility study, really. I never want to sort of look a gift horse in the mouth. But there again, I also believe there's no such thing as a free dinner. And usually if you're doing a sort of feasibility study, you have some sort of expected outcomes at the end of it, or there's some sort of reasonable motivation behind it. So I'm probably a bit disappointed that actually nobody seems to know anything about it. And I just love to know, I just love to know a little bit more about why we're doing it and what in the future the possible benefits are for our residents or for our community, and also what the costs might be. Why are we doing it? Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
There are no costs to the council for this feasibility study. I will put her on my little list.
Councillor Mallet.
Thank you, Chairman. I do find it somewhat strange that the portfolio holders come to this council to ask us to agree a recommendation for spending some money. Whilst assuring us it's not our money, it's somebody's money, the taxpayers paid for it, there's tens of thousands of pounds that the portfolio holder believes should be spent on a feasibility study, but it can't even tell us what it's a feasibility study into, what he expects might be some of the outcomes of the feasibility study. I don't know if this is kind of poor preparation, or maybe he thought he was with Councillor Whittaker and wouldn't be giving a report on this tonight, so maybe it's because the Director of Finance isn't here. I've got no idea what on earth it is we're supposed to be approving. I would imagine if no one around this table, including the portfolio holder, is asking us to approve it, goodness knows what the public watching this thing. Tens of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money that we're going to spend on a feasibility study, and we don't even know what it is
we want to find out if it's feasible.
Councillor Mrs May.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Bromsgrove District Council is currently undertaking a feasibility study into the possibility of district heating in the Bromsgrove town. This study is funded by the Central Government Heat Networks Development Unit, Worcestershire LEF and North Worcestershire Economic Development and Regeneration. The district heating introduction is district heating is a cluster of buildings supplied with heat from a cluster of buildings in the town supplied with heat from a central plant via a network of insulated pipes. It is a long-term project. There are networks in Europe and the UK that are over 60 years old. Where there is a situation that appropriate heat users, supply options and pipework routes, a well-designed heat network can be more efficient than individual heating supplies. In terms of the central plant, a range of options can be considered. I can go on war and peace here. It's about optimisation of heating with close proximity of buildings for the benefit of the business and for the benefit of the town, and also about reducing our carbon footprint.
Councillor Mrs Baxter.
Point of clarification, really. Am I right in that you started that report by saying that Bromsgrove has taken part in this? You haven't agreed it yet. It's a briefing note.
Can I remind everybody that this agenda item is purely to agree to put this money in the revenue for this year. There's nothing else, that's all it is.
Thank you very much. That's absolutely right, Councillor Cooper. And if you add up the £59,000, we are not out of pocket to a penny. It's a feasibility study. This is the briefing paper that I've had come into my inbox today. Thank you.
Councillor Mallet.
Thank you, Chairman. I do appreciate the Deputy Leader's intervention. Thank goodness she's able to read the briefing note. It's unfortunate she didn't circulate the briefing note to the finance portfolio holder or indeed to any other members, because it seems to be that she's the only person in the picture in terms of the heating scheme that we may or may not be moving forward with. Since she's an advocate of it and she clearly thinks it's going to help the business in the town centre, could you tell me where she plans to build the heating plant?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As part of a feasibility study, the site will be looked at on their own merit, and there's coding within this feasibility. I'm happy for this to go out. This is, we'll be completely transparent. We're looking at options. This will be circulated, Councillor Mallet. It's not something we're hiding. It's something that's coming to my inbox, and I've not. I picked it up this afternoon.
Surely, Madam Chairman, before the feasibility study, the controlling group must have some idea of the benefits of which businesses where, even if the feasibility study hasn't been made to give detail, they must have some idea, hey, it might help this business here, or this housing thing here. Has it been thought about?
Keep the sports hall.
Councillor Thompson, Councillor, would you like to sum up?
I would. You can tell we're in an election year. As I repeat again, this is purely a technical motion to incorporate this money, which is given from other agencies, into the revenue for this budget year. I ask people to support it. We can move on to the next agenda.
We'll now put it to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation, could you please show? Okay. Those against? And any abstentions? The recommendation has been approved. Can you now refer to your supplementary papers, the Cabinet meeting the 16th of January and the recommendations from that meeting? The first one is the medium-term financial plan 2019-2020 to 22-23. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This report on the medium-term financial plan, which is on pages 69 to 80 of the Journal papers, was submitted to Cabinet. This is not the final version, so there's really no point in discussing it today. The final version of the medium-term financial plan is being prepared and will be discussed by the Finance and Budget Working Group and Cabinet before it comes to Council in February for its approval. However, there are items in the paper related to staff pay, which the Cabinet is recommending to Council. In the appendix on page 81, There is a briefing paper on the national pay award and the proposed changes to the local pay model, i.e. pay grades. It is anticipated that no council employee will have a pay cut as a result of the proposed revision in the pay model. The changes will cost the council £165,000 over the next 4 years, and these costs will be included in the medium-term financial plan that is being finalised. This scheme will go into formal consultation with the trades unions, provided council approves tonight. So the Cabinet recommendations to council are on page 1 of the supplementary agenda are: first, that the pay model is as included in Appendix 5.1 of the report be adopted and implemented with effect from 1st of August 2019, and that a formal consultation be commenced with the trades unions with a view to reaching a collective agreement so to implement the pay model in line with the revised national pay spines. I assume.
You do have a seconder. Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Cooper? Councillor Mrs. Margaret Buxton.
Sorry, Councillor Cooper, do you want me to repeat the question? I can clearly remember.
Absolutely. I wouldn't like to get it wrong.
Right. The people that are going to be poorly affected, which I think in the report are 18 in number, are there going to be any transitional arrangements put in place because they've gone years without anything like a reasonable pay rise? And the second bit is which trade unions, which branches of which trade unions are going to be consulted with?
To answer the first question, I don't know if any specific will be done for that, except it will be part of the negotiations with the trade unions. I mean, everybody will get a pay rise, but because of the 2% national agreement. This paper is really tweaking the pay grades so that so we don't end up with, if we have pay spines that are used in the national award, we'd have 9 or 10 of these spinal points within one grade. And so it's a question, our involvement with this national process is just to simplify the pay grades. Obviously, the matters you raised will be discussed with the unions. Am I allowed to ask for the officers to tell me which union branches will be involved in our negotiations? I'm not a union negotiator.
Chairman, sorry, it's all of the recognised trade unions, so just to confirm with Sue Hanley, Deputy. It's Unison, Unite and GMB, I think, are the three main unions that we have within the Bromsgrove workforce membership.
What I'm really asking, sorry, is in Unison you've got a Bromsgrove branch and a Redditch branch, will both be consulted with, or is it regional office or what?
This is a purely Bromsgrove paper we're discussing.
But it's about bringing it into line with Redditch, it says, as well.
Well, no, in fact, the truth is that Redditch are coming into line with us. But this is a Bromsgrove paper, and Redditch have their own issues, will be to negotiate with their own unions. But this is purely Bromsgrove, and purely Bromsgrove unions will be involved.
All right, thank you. I kind of got it.
Are there any other questions to Councillor Cooper? Councillor MacDonald.
To the poor industrial relations within this council between the unions and so-called management, and the deteriorating day by day, has a portfolio holder any confidence that he can actually implement this model, which I don't think we'll object to, but can you think you can get it through now, sound industrial relations with the unions?
Well, like the leader, I'm slightly mystified by this low morale. That's not. There will always be individuals who are unhappy in any organisation. I'm sure some of the councillors in this room are unhappy, but I'm not aware of a general lack of problem. If the councillors opposite feel there is an issue with staff morale, then obviously that should be brought up as a possible item on the overview scrutiny board. It could be properly looked at and see if this is correct. Thank you.
Councillor Hothan.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, as you know, I have many worries about the financial plan moving forward. But at this moment in time, I'd like to propose an amendment to this recommendation to, I don't think we've actually got to 2.3 yet, have we? Is that part of your overall thing, Cabinet? No, yeah. What really concerns me is on page 73 at 3.1. way that the new homes bonus is going to, well, we are predicting that new homes bonus is going to cease from 2021, and we will only then be in receipt of the monies that we've already, or monies already on housing that's already claiming new homes bonus on. Now, we have this fantastic scheme in this county that we fought very hard to get going, called the New Homes Bonus Grant Scheme. This has benefited countless small and medium-sized organisations across the district and has been really well received. Now, if the New Homes Bonus money dries up in 2021, there will be no New Homes Bonus money, no new Homes Bonus money. Now, as the grant that is paid out by the council is based on the new intake of that New Homes Bonus money, there will be no money available for the New Homes Bonus Grant Scheme. So I would like to propose an amendment.
Is this an amendment to the joint pay model that we're discussing?
No, it's number 2.3. I've asked, the Cabinet members already said that he's already discussed that. 2.3, yeah. Where the Cabinet is asked to note the current medium-term financial plan gap and request Office to continue to review the position to enable a balanced budget to be presented to the Cabinet.
That's a Cabinet. The recommendation is on page 1.
What's page 1 then?
The supplementary agenda. This one.
It's on the supplementary.
This one?
Yes, Councillor.
There's two things to approve. Recommended to council, which I've read out. A and B.
So we're not talking about the new homes bonus? No.
No, we're not.
Oh, well, I'm terribly sorry about
Can
that.
I reassure that he, once again, he raises important issues, which we will be discussing in the Finance and Budget Working Group, as well as next time at Council. But I think we are only restricted to passing the two recommendations on page 1 of the agenda, of the supplementary agenda, A and B, regarding the pay model in consultation with the unions. Can I move?
Councillor Mrs Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Heard quite a lot tonight from both sides, possibly about staff morale, and this is, I think, something that's really important to us. And I remember a little while ago, when I was on ONS, we set up a task group which was actually a joint one with Redditch, looking at staff survey and things. I don't know whether I've sort of fallen asleep in the meanwhile, but what was the outcome of that? I can't remember seeing a report back to Council on improvements in staff morale or otherwise. I was just wondering what the status was of that and whether work was continuing on it in light of this quite big upheaval that's going to be happening in the near future over these new pay scales. Thank you.
Councillor Peter MacDonald.
I'll make a suggestion that in the past has served this council and other councils well when it comes to industrial relations. It's no good waiting and spending time with overview while you've got this disruption going on. Can I suggest that the leaders seriously considered a small panel, perhaps made for yourself, your deputy, the leader and his deputy, and a chief officer, perhaps some senior rep from the union, to meet twice or 3 times a year. And that way, if there is any disruption or ill feeling, we'll know about it and be able to put it in bed. And of course, it will show to the unions that we do actually care about them because we're prepared to meet them 2 or 3 times a year. It worked in the past, and I think it will work in the future.
All I'm saying is I had agreed to meet Councillor Thompson with the chief executive, and I will pick it up.
Councillor Coelho.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In response to Councillor Baxter, of course. Yes, I was. I forget what it was termed. Champion, staff champion, or something. And I sort of participated in that staff survey. The staff survey was given greater light and scrutiny because previous surveys were conducted, and I think the outputs from it were quite startling in that it meant the overview and scrutiny collectively said that future surveys should be done in a more robust and calculated way, and the outputs from those surveys should have been considered a lot more detail, and the outputs from those surveys should have been part of performance reviews and targets and that type of thing. If I remember rightly, and I might be wrong, staff morale was a big part of those surveys, and I think one of the startling outputs was that the morale was low, and there was the hope that by doing regular surveys, and there hasn't been a staff survey since a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, so that the work that could be done between surveys would then track an improvement in morale, taking on what the staff are saying, what needs to be done, and that type of thing, team briefs, that sort of thing. It went along, Redditch backed out of it, but I carried on for a while, but in fact I met the consultant that conducted but the bottom line was it's basically not come forward again. We sort of lost track of it. Something that Open Scrutiny should be picking back up. It certainly was on the work programme.
Well, I think this will be picked up. Councillor Cooper, would you like to sum up, please?
Can I thank all councillors for their contribution, but can I say that really what we want to do is to move implement the national pay agreement, make tweaks to the spines so that it's simple for everyone to understand. And obviously the important thing is this will be discussed with the unions, and so we will obviously be interested to get their feedback. So I propose we could go ahead and vote, Madam Chair.
Right, we're voting on the recommendation A and B. Could you please show if you are in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Recommendations passed. The next one is fees and charges, of which you will note at the back of your papers, we've got pink papers. Can I ask if there's any councillors who want to discuss the pink papers? Right, therefore I won't need to ask the public to leave. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The report on fees and charges for 2019-2020 is on pages 87 to 134 and also on pink pages 171 to 175 of your agenda papers. In past years, fees that could be increased were increased across the board by a standard inflationary increase. Perhaps understandably, this was criticised by councillors, especially by Councillor Baxter last year. Heads of service have taken this on board, so... No. I think it's a good idea. So heads of service have been pleased to take this on board this year, and so the approach has been somewhat different, as outlined in paragraphs 3.1 and 3.2 of the report. It remains more important than ever that additional income be generated from fees and charges, but this year each fee was assessed to identify how it met the Council's strategic purposes. Any increases suggested have been based on a robust estimate of firstly the impact of cost increases and secondly the demand for the service. Where a general inflation increase has been proposed, retail price index of 3% was used, and this was the level of RPI in October 2018. Fees and charges were considered in the light of the following criteria. Was the service to be subsidised by councils? Was the service to break even? Or was the service to make a surplus to offset other overheads? The appendix, which starts on page 89, shows all the fees and charges for each service area with comments on each section. Part of the appendix is on pink pages as it contains fees and charges for some environmental services that are commercially sensitive. The schedule of fees and charges has been discussed at the Finance and Budget Working Group, and where some suggestions were made, which were subsequently approved by Cabinet, and are listed on page 2 of the supplementary agenda table tonight. These changes have been now incorporated into the additional papers of the schedule of the fees and charges which have been tabled tonight. Cabinet also felt that there could be more information about what some of the higher charges included. It is proposed that this information will be included in next year's schedule of fees and charges. All members of Council had the opportunity to question heads of service at a special meeting held before last week's Cabinet. So the Cabinet recommendations to Council on page 1 of the supplementary agenda are: first, that Council approves all the fees and charges that are included in Appendix 1. Second, that Council approves the recommendations from the Finance and Budget Working Group. And third, that additional information on hire products be included with future fees and charges. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Do you have a seconder, please? Is there a seconder? Thank you very much. Councillor Mrs Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd really just like to congratulate the portfolio holder for finance for producing this report. I certainly don't have any questions on it, but I think more importantly I'd like to thank the Finance Working Group for going through it in detail and actually presenting one or two changes to the Cabinet who took them on board. I think this is probably the best report that I've seen during the time that I've been a councillor for fees and charges, and I'm fully support it.
Are there any other questions of Councillor Cooper? Councillor Cooper, would you like to sum up? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cleller.
Thank you, Madam. I would just like to echo those thanks. And I think, to my mind, the council's grown up over the last 3 or 4 years, because this is a perfect example of cross-party cooperation. Councillor Mallett chairs it, Councillor Cooper attends, officers commit their time and so forth. So it really is a fantastic progression from the early days of this council. And I would just like to perhaps encourage members of this council that this is a future way of working. We don't have to work in our silos, we don't have to be political, we can just be working for the best purposes of this council. So I'd like to thank any members for this.
Councillor Cooper, do you wish to sum up, please?
I'm quite embarrassed with it. But I obviously agree with what's said, and I would like to pay tribute to Councillor Mallett and the Finance Budget Group, and particularly Councillor Hosam, who was very assiduous in picking up some of the perhaps inconsistencies in the original draft of fees and charges. And thank you for Councillor Baxter for their comments. I think we have, Councillor Baxter and Councillor Cleller are right, we have grown up as a council. This is so much better than it was a few years ago. And I think we have to also thank the officers, Jane Pickering and Amanda Scarce, for servicing the budget working group. So I would ask Council to support the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Right, it's the recommendations A, B and C. Can I ask you please show your hands if you're in agreement? Those against? And any abstentions? The recommendations are passed. The third one on our sheet is Capital Strategy 2019-20, incorporating the Treasury Management Strategy. I understand, Councillor Cooper, this is to be deferred to the next meeting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman, and apologies to the councillors that it's not Councillor Denaro's fault, it's my fault that we were deferring this. I was, so somebody else is blamed. It doesn't go well with my name though, Defero. No, but just to the background briefly, councillors, how can I be the leader as an ordinary resident? But never mind. What I'm going to say. The Capital Strategy report, which is now a requirement, new for the next year. I was looking through the figures with Mrs. Pickering, and there were one or two figures I was not happy with. And I feel this is a new document, something new we have to do, and I would very much like the Finance and Budget Working Group to have a look at it and go through the figures and what's in it. And then the recommendations of that Finance and Budget Working Group could, if they agree to look at it, then they can go to the Cabinet, and we would re-present this at the March Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Right, we now go on to the next agenda item 8, to receive the minutes of the meetings of the Cabinet held on the 5th of December 2018. and the 16th of January 2019, and pages 23 to 28 for the December meeting, and the 16th of January. They're in your supplementary papers. And I'll read through these, and these are for noting only. The meeting of the 5th of December, page 23, page 24, page 25, page 26, page 27, and page 28. And at the meeting of the 16th of January, page, and this is in your supplementary papers, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, and page 11. Agenda item 10, questions on notice. Oh, sorry. I need to go to Specsavers. Report on recommendations from the Independent Remuneration Panel. Councillor Tenaro.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It has been an interesting year with the Independent Remuneration Panel, because this time last year, when I stood before you, I advised that I couldn't accept some of the recommendations that they've made regarding the SRA allowances, and that I needed to talk to them to explain my differences with their opinions. Sadly, that didn't happen until this year, because all the members of the panel were almost due to finish their term, and there were only a couple left. But the new panel have been appointed. I am full of optimism, because they are a very bright bunch, and it'll be interesting to see how they perform. But in the meantime, basically, the recommendations they put forward are an exact copy of the recommendations they put forward last year, that I had difficulty with, and I'm still going to have difficulty with them last year. So I have had 2 meetings with 2 members of the current panel. One is an old member carrying on, the other one is a new member. And we did have some frank discussions. They understood where I was coming from, and they've asked if I could supply data to back up what I am saying, and I have offered to do that. I've also asked them to provide me with the information that they are using to say why they consider that some SRAs should be moved downwards, because I don't accept that, and I haven't done. So I am hopeful that we will get the information onto them shortly, and that we will see the results in due course. I hope they will undertake more conversations with councillors than just assuming they work on the data they believe, because I believe there's more to it than that. The recommended increase of 18% for Cabinet and Scrutiny Chair I cannot support, because I need detailed evidence to present to Council. I wouldn't come before you saying somebody has had an increase of 18% awarded without having explanations as to why and how that has built up and been deserved. And they have not presented us with any figures, which is one of my gripes. So I would hope to see progress from our discussions, but with a new team we should get there. Anyway, you will see from the chart on page 3 that on cost ratios we are reasonably in line with the other districts in Worcester. In fact, we are relatively close to the average. Now, the figures on page 39, I have to say, which are where they put their recommendations for this year, where it has the current multiplier, it gives a whole list of decimal points which are really out of line, purely because we froze the SRAs last year. So it is my intention to recommend that we go back to the standard multipliers that we've used before. So my recommendations will be that we do accept the increase to the basic allowance as they have proposed, which will go up from £4,350 to £4,437. which is 2%. And that the special responsibility allowances stay as the multipliers they are at present, rather than using what the panel recommend. So that would mean that going from the top, leader would be 3, deputy leader would be 2, cabinet members and the chair of scrutiny would be 1.3, chair of overview and scrutiny would be 0.25, the chair of audit is 0.25, chair of planning committee 1.3, chair of licensing 0.3, political group leaders 0.25, chair of appointments committee 0.03, chair of electoral matters committee 0.03, and chair of appeals panel 0.03. I also have to make recommendations regarding the other items that are listed on page 31 of your agenda, and it will be my request that we take all those in block rather than be reading each one out. So my recommendation would be 1, that the basic allowance representing 2% increases worked through, and on 2, that the special responsibility allowance, I set it Appendix 1 as amended by my proposals tonight. The other 4 recommendations stand for themselves and are due to us to put through tonight. I so move, Madam Chair.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor Denaro? Is there a seconder? Good, Ben. Right, thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Denaro? Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think anybody this side would object to what's being recommended. I think we would have recommended that, to be honest, with that being recommended by the leader. But our concern is one of the makeup of this remuneration panel. I think very diplomatically you said you've got little confidence in them. I think it's fair to say from this side we've got no confidence in this bunch whatsoever. And the reasons are clear. There's not one member on that panel that comes from outside the bubble of local government or anywhere, local government or close to local government. There's nobody on that panel who's never had a job where they don't get full sick pay if they're sick, where they get full pay if they need work early to carry out duties such as this. There is no one there from the other real world where people do not get paid when they need their work early to come to this council. And therefore, I don't believe these people have the experience that a lot of us have in engineering and manufacturing, where we would, obviously, if they did, put different proposals forward. And I can't understand why, every time we have a new panel, there is no one on that panel from outside that bubble. And I think it's shameful, and we ought to recruit in such a way we get people from the real world.
Councillor Denaro, you wish to reply?
Yes, sadly, Councillor MacDonald, the adverts go out there and we have to choose from who applies to do the job. And we've quite a good response, but we've narrowed it down to actually the people who were most effective at thinking outside the box in the interviews.
I'm trying to make that, Chair. This one's going to look at the recruitment, how you're carrying out the recruitment, your advertising, because you're not getting people that represent the average person in Bromsgrove. They represent a little clique. And this nonsense ought to stop.
Councillor Mrs Baxter. Councillor Mrs Baxter was first.
Well, if Councillor May would like to respond first.
Yes. Thank you very much, Councillor Baxter. Very much appreciated.
Sorry, I thought you were going to ask a question, Councillor.
No. I want to make a statement. I actually agree with Councillor MacDonald regarding this, and I'll take it up on stage. We need to incentivise young people to come into this, to become a councillor, to take part and to engage with what's happening in their community. And the way this is going, you're only going to have retired people, and I'm not being rude about retired people, I respect them for their experience, but we need youngsters in this room as well. So I, for once, absolutely agree with you, and I think this remuneration panel needs to be very realistic in the approach they take and understand what the youngsters, the challenges that the younger population have. An apology, it just cut on.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Baxter.
Thank you. I also totally agree with you, because looking around this room here tonight, the only people who can really afford to be councillors are retired. So I do think we do need to have one option. Okay, the majority we're all getting on. However, the point I want to make is, moving on, support this recommendation for this year. However, I think not only am I interested in the remuneration panel going forward, I'm also very interested in the data that's sent to them. Because sitting here, if you like, as a backbencher, I don't always know what the portfolio holders do. I know I daren't mention portfolio holders' reports this particular meeting, but I know that somebody somewhere does produce those. I know what some of them do. The multipliers that we have, if you look at planning, the recommended multiplier is 1. We actually use 1.29. So I know planning is important to us, but what does our chairman of planning do that means that you should get more than the average? I've never ever seen him on a site visit where all the councillors go. So yeah, what I'm asking for is when this data is sent off to the remuneration panel, please could the rest of the council get sight of it? Because I'd really love to know what you guys do, and I know some of you work incredibly hard. Some of you do. But I really would like to know what the portfolio holders and committee chairmen do. Thank you.
Councillor Tate, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, my teeth are aching because I'm actually going to agree with Councillor MacDonald. It's very rare that happens. But he's absolutely right. I mean, Councillor May's right. And Councillor MacDonald's right, which is very, 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 very odd. It's something that Councillor MacDonald has said for quite a long time, actually. I mean, when I first came on the council, there was a remuneration panel. I remember him standing up saying virtually what Councillor May has said. You know, that we need new councillors, and people, as he's just said, leave work early, put themselves out. I'll take a minor issue with Councillor Baxter. As the portfolio holder of planning, I have a good relationship with the chairman of planning, and if I phone Richard, he's always got an answer to a problem. He has a great in-depth knowledge of Bromsgrove. He's quite a good problem-go-awayer sort of person. And he takes an interest, and we do meet and we do have conversations probably twice a month. So that's in addition to his normal duties of pre-meetings with officers. So, but I think you're probably quite right. Maybe as the portfolio holders, we should write our own job description and send them to you. And possibly, if you would like, I will send you a copy of my diary. But I do actually agree with Councillor MacDonald, and we need to look at the makeup of this panel and get some real people to actually sit on it and make the decisions.
Councillor Mrs May.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. We do have a job description as portfolio holders, and I'd be more than happy, absolutely ecstatic to show you my diary, Councillor Baxter, and the number of hours that I put in and to represent my residents effectively. Absolutely, I'm committed. I'm committed to economic development, and I'm committed to long-term sustainability of this council, which, if you looked at some of the criticism we're receiving, is most unfair. And to highlight the planning chairman as not doing anything, he does work very hard, very, very hard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with a lot of what Councillor Denaro said, and Councillor Donald and Councillor Taylor and Councillors May, in fact everybody virtually. However, I think that's a good independent, you see, treading the middle ground, the voice of reason. I thought I'd have a look at this report from the bit of data they do present in there, and sort of work it through and see what was going on. And to my mind, the report is a complete and utter nonsense. I mean, firstly, we've got 11 pages of report. 3 of those pages are telling us how good the people that have written the report are. I mean, yeah. And I really do think that we need to look at this quite seriously, because, you know, I was looking at the leader and working out how many hours he was actually paid for per week on the basis of the calculation they're doing. And it's actually 46 hours. And I thought, well, I'm sure that actually Jeff does put in 46 hours, but what he's actually paid, I think, doesn't represent the remuneration he should actually be receiving for that role. And then I looked at a cabinet member, and they're actually currently doing or being paid for about 26 hours a week, and again, it's probably not so far off. And then I looked at our deputy leader, and she's currently paid for about 34 and a half hours at Bromsgrove. So then what I did is I thought, I wonder if I multiply this through to Worcester County Council, what do we come to? Now, I know Councillor Taylor runs his own business and he's looking fairly tired at the moment. It's not really surprising because if you multiply this through, Councillor Taylor is paid for 83 and a half hours a week. And it just demonstrates to me that the fundamental principle of this report is flawed. And if I want to take it even further, I'm surprised that Karen's with us at all, because she's actually paid for 105 hours a week on this. And it's just completely wrong. So my view is that yes, accept what it says at the moment as the leader suggests. And I would like to see a revised scheme of payments or allowances brought back before this council before the next election, so that we encourage people who are younger, who want to make it more of a career, to actually stand at that election. And we recommend, as this standing council, that's what we're going to say moving forward, and we stand on that at the ballot box. And it gives everybody the opportunity who wants to stand to see that this is something that they could do and not be financially disadvantaged. So I would like to see a new scheme brought forward before the next election.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Chairman. I also agree with Councillor MacDonald. In fact, if he hadn't raised this point tonight, I was going to raise it in any case, because for a number of years I felt that the remuneration panel is simply just not representative of the people of Bromsgrove District. I know it's a county-wide panel, but there's no one there that actually represents the average council taxpayer. Now, it's all very well saying we need younger people and people who are working on 0 hours contracts, etc. But we also need someone from the older population who's actually stuck on having to manage on a fixed income, on a pension. Those people still have to pay their council tax. We really ought to take them into account as well. But the panel is obviously not representative. It's elitist, and it seems to be the great and the good, and we're told over those 3 pages how great and good they are.
Councillor Van den Plank.
I think some very valid points raised about the pay, and I certainly support Councillor Hogan's suggestion that we bring that back from before the next election. Pay is a barrier, but can we also please not kid ourselves that it's just about pay? I think one of the key things that will be putting people off, and I see it time and time again, and I find it so frustrating, that is the bickering and the lack of collaboration across the different sides of the chamber. We had a great example earlier about where actually sector, cross-party collaboration really improved the way that we work. We have to change the way that we behave in this chamber. Every single meeting I see people talking to each other in a really disrespectful, sometimes bordering on bullying way, and that will be the biggest barrier to getting new people coming forward than just the pay. So please, let's not kid ourselves, it's just about pay, and let's please focus on behaviours and trying to do the best thing for the communities we're supposed to be representing.
Councillor Thompson.
Seems we have some agreement, therefore, that the makeup of this panel is incorrect. We can't decide upon pay rises ourselves, that's what we all agreed upon, but you suggest that the problem is with the recruitment. So I don't know what the substance of Charlie's suggestion was, but perhaps something comes to ONS that says we look seriously at the recruitment process, because until we can recruit the panel, then we can't move forward with this, and that would be a suggestion. If that's the problem, if recruitment is a problem.
I don't think recruitment.
That's what the deputy leader said.
No, I don't think recruitment's a problem. I think it's the type of job we're advertising. You only get a certain type of person that's been, quite rightly, applies for those sort of jobs. Our problem now is that, of course, we've just signed them all up for 4 years. And I don't really know, to be fair, yet, what they are going to be like, because this report has been put together by the 2 previous members, because the new members have only just signed up and have really started yet. So, and also there will always be, as Councillor Harris is probably aware, in any way they work this out, there is always called the voluntary part of a local authority's pay. And this was, so whenever they work out something, they always take off 40% for your voluntary contribution.
That's where the real hours account for,
Well, that's right. So that's another thing. I said to them, well, where did the 40% come from?
And no, you don't get paid for your holiday.
Holidays?
When you actually
Sorry? What's holiday? So that's something else we have to take into account. We will really struggle to get anything put together in 2 months. It's an extraordinary amount of work that goes into the background. We could probably look at some other council areas and see how they do their pay reviews and how they work it out, but it's worked out on time where they've charged time in Worcester to see where it worked out an average of 10 3/4 hours a week for an average councillor. So they've got the stats.
The trouble is we're not average councillors on this side, we're excellent councillors.
Councillor Clegg.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I'm a worker and I'm of a certain age. I think we're losing sight of the fact here is that this is an allowance, it's not a salary. We get an allowance for putting ourselves forward to represent our communities, and the allowance helps, but it's not a salary. No, I'll work for my salary. When I stop working, I'll have a pension for my income, but it's not. It's not a salary; it's an income. So we've got to bear in mind, as Councillor Van der Plank has said, is that this isn't about money, about people stepping forward. There's a whole host of other things, and that's for another day.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just for some clarification from the leader, do I understand that this panel deals with Bromsgrove District Council alone, or are they county-wide? How many people are they deciding on the wages for? 5 district councils. Yeah, and the county.
Maybe a separate practice. We did suggest merging. The only one that aren't involved in
Right, can I intervene here? I think once Mrs. would like to just, Mrs. Belder would like to just make something plain.
Just through you, Chairman, the purpose of bringing this tonight is so that members can agree as part of the budget proposals, so that the budget is available for members' allowances for the next financial year. The opportunity for you to make any changes to that would be limited, if not very difficult, between now and the election has been suggested. Obviously some very good points have been made about the scheme by members this evening. I'm wondering whether perhaps the member development or the constitution or maybe the leader group that you've referred to might be an opportunity for you to discuss options for next year. Certainly why Forest don't include themselves in the scheme, and I could look to see what alternatives might be available for members to consider moving forward. But the purpose of today's proposal is to ensure that the budget proposals are agreed so that members' allowances form part of the budget for next year. So if members were minded to agree that, I think that might be a way forward.
Councillor Mrs. Baxter.
That sounds a very reasonable proposal, thank you.
Councillor Denora, do you wish to sum up at all, please? We now put the recommendations as given by Councillor Denora to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendations? Against? Abstentions? Agreed. Agenda item 10, questions on notice. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In late 2018, representatives from Bromsgrove District Council met with BDHT to discuss the Burcott Lane site and the Council's proposed housing company. Can the leader tell us, please, who attended that meeting on behalf of Bromsgrove District Council? What were the objectives and the outcomes of that meeting, and particularly, given BDHT's experience, what BDHT thought of the Council's venture into housing development? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Denora.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Right, senior officers from BDC and BDHT, as you rightly said, met on the 18th of December. Officers present from BDC were Sue Hadley, Deputy Chief Executive, Derek Allen, Housing Strategy Manager, Matthew Graff, Housing Strategy and Enabling Team Leader. BDHT officers in attendance were Mark Robertson, Chief Executive BDHT, Graham Anderson, Director of Housing and Communities BDHT, Barry Stevens, Director of Asset Management and Development BDHT. The purpose of the meeting was to provide an update to BDHT on the current position regarding proposals for the Burkett Lane development which have been endorsed by Council, and specifically the position regarding ongoing dialogue with Homes England in respect of the accelerated Great Bridge funding, the proposed timelines for scheme development, confirmation that BDC have commissioned external support, an overview of the basis of affordable housing on site, section 106 monies, and sought BDHT's views around potential future regeneration opportunities working with BDC on a partnership basis. In addition, there are a number of operational issues raised and actions agreed, and also an overview provided on the current partnership arrangements in place regarding community safety in Bromsgrove and North Worcestershire. There was no view given by BDHT at this meeting regarding thoughts as to the Council's venture into housing development. I would like to thank Councillor Thompson for raising to Council's attention the ongoing positive collaborative partnership arrangements which exist with BDHT. Officers meet regularly with colleagues of BDHT, and it is vitally important that there is ongoing shared dialogue given the current ownership and interests at the Burkett site, not least of which BDHT's major stakeholder status as housing provider on site and the shared access arrangement and current hostel provision. As there were no formally recorded notes of the meeting in December, we have shared the content of this response with all officers present at the meeting who have endorsed this as a true and accurate reflection of the issues discussed. Thank you.
The leader wasn't present at this meeting. Given that this is quite a big political bench going forward, you weren't there.
No, we have separate meetings.
Tell us about that.
No, the Chief Executive and myself meet with the Chief Executive of BDHT on a regular basis. I think it's about every 6 weeks. You're not jealous, are you?
Very. No, we meet anyway.
Right, we move on. And question number 2 from Councillor Coletta.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Does the leader agree with me and other members of this council whose wards are likely to see cuts in essential public library services and public bus services that we cannot stand by and watch Worcester County Council cut these services without this council stepping in with both financial support in its medium-term financial plan and without stepping in to look at what options exist for the District Council to take responsibility for statutory control of these services away from the County Council, who obviously see them as burdens on their roles and responsibilities.
Councillor Denaro.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Bromsgrove Council will do all it can to ensure retention of our libraries and the services they provide, as they are a vital part of our communities. I don't like disappointing Councillor Colella, but he will not be surprised that I don't agree with him. We cannot just abrogate statutory functions without Acts of Parliament, and at the moment I don't think you've got any chance of getting on through Parliament in any shape or form for a couple of years. Of course, we are looking at all avenues as to how we can work smarter together. We are and will continue to talk libraries at every opportunity, as our residents would expect us to do, and the consultation is still ongoing, and we will have more talks once it has closed.
Question 3 is from Councillor Kate van der Plank.
Please could the leader explain the current process and suggest what improvements can be made to improve planning and communications between departments and between our parishes around scheduled maintenance. As an example, this council planned to close the car park at the polling station for resurfacing on the day of the Alf Church referendum. And furthermore, it seems that notices of works are not sent out to our wards, so this was only picked up by chance. Thankfully, it was able to be stopped at last minute. But it seems that some improvement needed on communications, please.
I can't dispute that this was a close-run thing. Disaster was averted, I'm glad to say. But you have raised an interesting prospect that if we hadn't managed to avert the problem at the last minute, what would have happened? I dread to think. But all I will say is that all events like this are fed into a central database, and we are obviously now reviewing our procedures that we can avoid any clash of events in the future. In fact, we've still got to find out how they got in there without something being flagged up. But thank you for that. I'm glad he did that. But we just managed to avoid it.
Thank you very much. We now go on to agenda item 11, motions on notice, and a period of 1 hour is allocated to consider the motions. The first motion is from Councillor Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm bringing this motion forward to endorse the Motor Neurone Disease Charter, which sets out the care and support that people who live with MND and also their carers deserve and should expect to call upon the Cabinet Member of Health and Wellbeing and Environmental Services to ensure that Council adopts the Charter. By adopting the MND Charter, this Council will be agreeing to promote the Charter and to make it available to all councillors, council staff, partner organisations, health and social care professionals who deliver services for the Council. As Bromsgrove District Council, we would raise awareness of MND and would good care for those living with a devastating disease looks like, as stated in the Charter. We would do everything we can as a council to positively influence the quality of life for those people with MND and the carers living in our community. Adoption would also mean taking on successful steps, including identification of key programme needs by the Council, publicity and developing links with the Motor Neurone Disease Association, who will provide resources and advice. From the literature that you have been emailed, the Charter is a commitment to recognise the needs of sufferers of MND and to raise awareness to those who are working with them and also policy makers. Those working in benefit, grants and housing areas need to be aware of the needs of the sufferers and develop strategies for all services across the sectors to work quickly together in assessment and assistance, as this disease can rapidly progress with the condition of the patient quickly deteriorating. I shall now read some of the document which will help to explain the Charter better. The MND's Charter is a statement of respect and care and support that people living with motor neuron disease and the carers deserve and should expect. People with MND typically find their care needs are complex and can change rapidly. This combination of complexity and rapid progression poses a major challenge to health and social care services. Many services and professionals are involved in caring for someone with MND. These include health professionals in both specialists and local service centres, social workers, therapists, hospice, equipment services, housing services and benefit systems. This complex web of support is essential to enable people with MND to live their lives as fully as possible and die with dignity. It is therefore vital that these services are well coordinated and that policymakers, commissioners and professionals also consider and plan for the care needs of the people with MND. Adopting the Charter is a simple way for this Council to raise awareness of the needs of people with MND and the importance of the right care at the right place at the right time. This means people with MND have the right to an early diagnosis and information. People with MND have the right to high quality care and treatments. People with MND have the right to be treated as individuals and with dignity and respect. This also means that people with MND have the right to maximise their quality of life, and that carers of people with MND have the right to be valued, respected, listened to and well supported. Here's a quote from Liam Dwyer, who is living with MND. Many people with MND die without having the right care, not having a suitable wheelchair, not having the support to communicate. We have got to set the standards so that people like us are listened to and treated with respect and dignity we deserve. We have got to stop the ignorance surrounding this disease and have to make sure that when a patient is first diagnosed with MND, they must have access to good, coordinated care and services. 1 week waiting for an assessment or a piece of equipment is like a year in most people's lives. because they are an everyday essential to help us live as normal life as possible and die with dignity. So thank you for listening, considering this motion. Not all the charter is applicable to the council, but please support this motion as it will not impact budgets. Our part is in the process of the care towards the residents is done with respect and care. This motion highlights awareness of the needs of some of the residents unfortunately diagnosed as having motor neuron disease, and the right actions at the right time ensuring they get the care they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Do you have a seconder? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I am delighted to second this motion. I have, during my nursing career, helped care for a lady with this debilitating and cruel disease, and am well aware how it affects those who suffer from that, and also the effect it has on their trusted carers. The Charter calls for 5 simple rights. I know you've heard it twice, but I do feel it's important to repeat it. The people with motor neuron disease should have the rights to an early diagnosis and information, access.
Forgive my croaky folks, I think we'll let it down. It's become obvious that the introduction of universal credit with its ultra-hard regime has resulted in an increase in homelessness and the knock-on of what is referred to as rough slavery. Horrible label, I think, for human beings. The instigator of the universal credit, Ian Duncan-Smith, claims there is no connection. I was shocked over the holiday period to hear our wonderful Prime Minister claim in Parliament, just after the holiday, that she had not seen the BAFTA winner of the most outstanding British film of 2017, I, Daniel Blake, which after a successful cinema run was shown on TV over the Christmas holiday. Living in a bubble, blinkered or both probably. It's a stain on our country to follow the National Statistics Organisation. It's a government organisation. An estimated 600 people died on our streets last year, an increase of 24% over the last 5 years. I recall under a Labour government, this was virtually wiped out, sleeps, outdoor sleeping. Birmingham Council had numbers down to under 10 across each night across the city. Nowadays, you come across people's doorways and under structures in the city centre, even during the day. This lifestyle is extremely harsh on the body, resulting in an average death for men of 44 years and 42 for women. Now we compare this with 76 and 81 in the general population. These numbers are shameful. It's no surprise to learn persons forced to sleep in cars, tents and even fields around our district. Tents have been seen in Simons Park and in the cemetery. I've been asked by residents and groups about this situation and what they can be done to help people they come across in need. Where do people find the information about the hostels and shelters in Bromsgrove? Apart from the BDC website, which guides people to London-based charity street link. Of course, the council hall provides, I think, very good help and information service there when it's open, but it's not weekends and evenings. The town centre is no longer as public notice board where such information could be displayed. We used to have 2 superb boards in the high street, which were replaced by a single, flimsy board off the high street, which inevitably got trashed and has recently disappeared. I contacted our Chief Executive Officer, Kevin Dix, a couple of weeks ago, inquiring about a replacement board for the town centre, mentioning the need to display this information regarding shelter and help. A swift and positive response to the matter from the Chief Exec was welcome and hopes raised. further response from other officers in this council appears to lack understanding and urgency of the situation. Although there was mention in their email about notices could be displayed in shop windows to raise awareness. As an interim, this has now been done with the help from Bromsgrove's Women's Labour Group. Lists of useful contacts have been printed and delivered to shops, libraries, pubs, etc. There is even one on display now in the board outside the library, which is by the door of the council's hall. So even if the doors are locked, people might get the information. Right, I'll finish before I'm finished. It's high time that members of it started to lobby and harass, I even say, this heartless government. After all, you're all in the same party, all members. It must have some influence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to echo some of the sentiments of Pete and Sean, particularly the crocodile tears. The reality is that under the Tory government, the rough sleepers have increased, so rough sleepers on the streets have increased from 1,800 to 4,800. And that is the reality of it. In London, 400 to 1,100 rough sleepers. And it's one of the things that you can see, okay? One of the things you can see between Birmingham, London, and you'll start to see it in, well, you can see it in Worcester and Bromsgrove. It is you who put the cross next to Sajid Javid, and you who put the cross next to the Conservative Party. And you can try and make up by that decision by the occasional charitable donation, but the reality is you are the cause of it. And I appreciate your mockery, Councillor Sharon. You can find it funny that you vote for a party that causes increase. Now let us remember, Councillor Van der Plant talks about cross-party cooperation, and she makes the comment that occasionally, yes, we do get a little frustrated, but there's something great that comes from having a Labour Party badge before you, because our great Labour government reduced homelessness from, reduced rough sleeping by 2/3. That is a party who cares for people. Yours is one that is not.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I always get concerned at times like these because I actually read this motion, as one does, before I came to the meeting, and I thought, yeah, that's a very commendable motion. I actually even agree with the increase in rollout of universal credit because I've got evidence in my own ward of people who are really struggling with it. But then the political argy-barging starts from one side of the chamber to the other. And I think, thank God, I'm an independent. I'm interested in my community. I want to help the people that live here in Bromsgrove, in Withall, in Hackney and wherever. It doesn't, okay, there are consequences of what national decisions have made. And to be perfectly honest, both sides make awful decisions that affect the lives of our people. But it's our duty here in Bromsgrove to look after our people, irrespective of what political colours we wear. And the time that we waste in this chamber arguing over national political items, I think is an absolute disgrace. However, getting back to the motion, as I say, supported. I was really disappointed, though, to find out that it sounds that you're actually describing the effect, the cause, but not the solution, because I actually had a rough sleeper in Withall a few months ago, and I haven't got a clue who to ring, and I'm a councillor. I actually contacted Shelter. And so I think the problem is we don't have a clear pathway in this council for handling rough sleepers. I don't know who to contact. It sounds to me that the Labour Group have actually done a really good job of putting something together. So I know I'm not a Labour councillor, I'm not Conservative one either. I'm an independent who wants to look after my community. So please, will you share that information with me, and I will happily support your motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. We had a homeless person that was camping upon the graveyard, up at the church graveyard in September, October last year. Councillor Dent and I spent
to date working with Caring for Communities and People and Derek Allen of this council to get him a home. And actually we did, we succeeded eventually. We got him a house in Redditch, he didn't want the initial one, so we worked with him and we actually accommodated him. When we talk about gaining political gain in this chamber, I just want to point out something, and I apologise to Councillor Baxter if this is offensive, but when I look at the stats, Birmingham City Council have 140 homeless families rocking up there every week, a Labour administration, and they do nothing about it. No, you can't keep blaming things on... Councillor Thompson, I didn't interject with you. I let you have your say. But when you stand up and you keep saying, I don't think anybody ever enters politics without having some goodwill and wanting to do good for their community. I certainly didn't. I don't want to see anybody homeless. Absolutely don't.
You sorted out too. When are you going to look after doing the 3,000?
No. Can you just...
You trying to excuse it by saying,
we're talking about Bromsgrove.
This administration, thank you Madam Chairman, this administration is absolutely committed to its residents. When I have conversations, and I have gone to see Birmingham City Council's administration, and they say to me, you know, Karen, there's a homeless family, they've got to go and stay in a travel lodge. That's Labour Party for you. Don't remember it, don't preach to me, do what, put your money where your mouth is, and actually have a word with your colleagues in Birmingham. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sorry, Sean, am I interrupting someone? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I must say thank you to Councillor MacDonald for taking that sentence out. I knew that there was going to be a political slant to the conversation. I'd be a total idiot not to. But this is a very important, very serious matter. I would also say to people that quite a good idea is just to Google rough sleepers, and then they will give the political history of rough sleepers. And it will also mention, you may smile, that Margaret Thatcher spent a night in a cardboard box to highlight the seriousness of homelessness. But we've got to come back to what this motion is about. It's not about whether it's Labour or whether it's Conservative. It's about us as a body of elected members looking after people that have a problem, whether they are from this area or whether they're not from this area. Now, members, you will be aware that traditionally here in Bromsgrove we have no track record of rough sleeping. In the last months, however, we've needed...
in the last few months...
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I must do something about these little things. In the last few months, we've needed to assist several people who have required emergency help with housing because they've had nowhere to live. Not all of these people have had a local connection to the district, but we decided to help them nevertheless and with success, securing accommodation for those that need it. I'd also add to this that we have an open door policy at this council. If you have a problem, if you are homeless, if you have nowhere to stay, you come on, you knock on the door, an officer will come out and help you. It's that simple. You can knock on the door. If you think somebody's rough sleeping, you can knock on that door. Strategic housing people will come out. If there's no officer available at the time, an officer will be found. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the specialist support provider, Caring for Communities and People, for all the hard work they put into helping vulnerable people to access housing when they need it, and also to thank the local community and churches for their efforts on this too. I would advise Council that we have taken a number of steps to prevent homelessness and rough sleeping in Bromsgrove. We fund BDHT to provide housing service locally, and earlier this month, Cabinet approved a funding package for a wide range of local charities who work in this field for the year ahead. I've also mentioned that we also have the CCP working with vulnerable people in our area too. And if someone does end up on the street, this service links up with them immediately. I'd also mention that this year we have worked collaboratively with providers in Redditch to enable anyone in Bromsgrove requiring emergency accommodation during cold weather to be able to access the Salvation Army accommodation there. As of today, no Bromsgrove resident has applied to that post. That's that accommodation. Having said that, Councillor MacDonald is right to remind us that the residents need to know how to connect with these excellent providers. So I'm pleased to say that officers together with the Town Centre Partnership are in the process of finalising a public information leaflet on how to help a rough sleeper. This leaflet will explain that residents concerned for the welfare of someone should contact StreetLink. That's the national helpline for rough sleeping. It will then trigger a local response at speed via the CCP. Other helpful contact information will also be contained in that leaflet. I'd like to point out a couple of things in terms of profile raising the local residents. First, I will say that we have information on the council's website about helping rough sleepers. We've also met the town centre traders to talk them through how to help when they see something they're worried about. We're also putting information on how to help a rough sleeper into our council tax leaflet, which will go out to all households in Bromsgrove. I wish it was at Birmingham, they could pay some money. I trust my answer reassures you. We are doing everything we can to ensure that rough sleeping continues to remain a rarity. And we're taking all the necessary steps to help the residents, to help the residents. Now, if any councillor in this room knows of a person that they have a concern about, they need to contact the council. Any resident out there that has a worry about somebody that might be homeless or might be a rough sleeper, and there is a difference between homelessness and a rough sleeper. A homeless person is somebody with no permanent abode. You might have a phone call, Auntie Sue, I've had a big bust up with the boyfriend, I need somewhere to sleep. That person is a homeless person at the moment. It's fortunate it would be safe and under a roof. That can be a homeless person. A rough sleeper is somebody that is, as Councillor MacDonald says, is sleeping on a park bench, in dire need of help. It's sometimes very difficult to help these people, because there are all sorts of, again, as Councillor MacDonald says, there are all sorts of problems. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be depression, mental illness, so it's not an easy thing. I know for a fact we have officers in this council from the strategic housing that have actively pursued people that are homeless. We have one officer that actually chased a gentleman round the toilets, as it were, because there was a concern that he was homeless. He said he was all right, and he's going for a job. But that is the level of commitment we have in this council. As councillors, we can take credit for trying to finance this. As human beings, we need to be aware of it. Our officers are absolutely superb at this. And if there's a report of 5 rough sleepers, 4 rough sleepers, it's got to be told to the strategic housing instantly. An officer will go out and they will find them. I wouldn't exactly sort of say we will track them down and find them, but that sounds a bit sinister. But I spent a couple of hours with strategic housing today. The passion in there is unbelievable. The morale in there is unbelievable, because they know they do an extremely difficult job extremely well. I would thank Councillor MacDonald for giving me this opportunity to sing the praises of the officers. Maybe we as councillors, maybe we as politicians need to have a good hard look at ourselves. But from the officer corps in this council, they are fantastic and they need to be backed. So thank you again, Councillor MacDonald, for allowing me to stand up and sing their praises. And forget all the political shenanigans. This is for the people of Bromsgrove. We are responsible for the people of Bromsgrove, and on that basis, I would like you to back this motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I just remind about the time as well, please? Councillor Hotham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I clearly will be supporting the motion. But what concerns me is that I feel that we're behind the curve on this one. And the council haven't moved as swiftly as they could have moved. And I'm also very concerned that when we were discussing this in open scrutiny, it became apparent that the council's official statistic was that there were no rough sleepers in the Bromsgrove district at all. And this came about because of what I would class a failed mechanism of actually deciding how many rough sleepers we have in the district. And this system relates on basically when council officers went out, as I understand it, on one night and found no rough sleepers, so then it decided that there were no rough sleepers in Bromsgrove. And I think that is pitiful because, as you've said, as Councillor Taylor has said, he's aware of rough sleepers, I'm aware of rough sleepers that we've had in Park Green, Councillor Baxter's aware of rough sleepers, Councillor MacDonald's aware of rough sleepers, so how was this spurious statistic allowed to come into official papers? And my other concern is that statistic fed into central government statistics that's then giving us a completely skewed view as to how many people are sleeping rough. And I think it is important that we do a proper comprehensive review of the number of people that are rough sleeping, so that we can offer the support that Councillor Taylor is talking about, and we know how much support we need to offer. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Dent.
Thank you, Chairman. I can totally support what Councillor May has said, and also support what Councillor Taylor has said. Now, at that CCP meeting I attended with Councillor May, it was a very productive meeting. Now, on the back of that, having left that meeting, I spoke to the licensing, WIS licensing officer. They send out a newsletter every month or every few months. Now, what we've done is put all the links on that newsletter so that the taxi drivers, if they do see any people sleeping off, not just around this area, but anywhere within Worcestershire, they can offer the information to those people sleeping rough. So we are doing things, and I get quite hurt. All the meetings I've attended and helped, and Bart Green rough people sleeping, that was sat outside and particular takeaway. You know, we are working hard, and I get a little bit hurt and thoroughly disgusted at the attitude of some people.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You spoke about this, so let the chair chair the meeting, Councillor Taylor. What I find amazing about what you say is someone brought politics into it. Where do you think you are, Councillor Taylor? You've got a Tory badge in front of you. If you don't want politics brought into it, go and join the Independents. But I'm not going to be ashamed of sticking up for a Labour government's excellent record. And as a proud Labour Party member, I'm not going to stop fighting against your abysmal record of your national government and what it's done to the people of this country. Now, I'm very sorry that you're dismayed, but I'm pretty dismayed by the increase in homelessness caused by your party. It is politics, I'm afraid. It's not shenanigans. It's the reality. And if you're backed up by the Independents who you want to applaud every time they justify what you do, then that's fair enough. But I'll remain Labour, and I'll remain fighting against what your government does to the people of this country.
Councillor Mrs. Baxter.
Point of order. I'm sorry I did not justify any political behaviour on either side.
Councillor Van.
Thank you. Could we please stop the political bickering and get back to this really important issue? Okay, let's think up some constructive things that we can do to address this issue in our communities. Please could I, there's some good suggestions come forward already. Please could I also ask that when we're looking at this, that we look at some of the outlying communities. I think there's two things. So in our church area, certainly since I've been in office, we've had 2 occasions of rough sleepers. But what happens, what tends to happen, is that those get reported to me, and that's in the middle of the night. So trying to get in touch with the office is actually not always possible. We also don't have regular taxis going, so in terms of that solution as well. So I think, great, that motion is a great start, but let's make sure that we've got, that includes information where we can get immediate help, when where people can go in the middle of the night, outside of office hours, and make sure that we have plans in place that are suitable for the town areas, but also for the more sort of remote, rural or urban areas where you've got different access to services. So I think it's a good start, but I think it needs a bit more work. Certainly be supporting it, but to ask for it to be looked at a bit more broadly, please.
Councillor Kit Taylor now should be asking Councillor Peter MacDonald to sum up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do apologise for putting my hand up again. I'd just like to advise the council over there that this is a district policy. These officers work for the district. They don't work for Bromsgrove Town, they work for the district. And I'm extremely concerned that information was passed to you that there were 2 rough sleepers and you felt you were unable to do anything, because there is a council emergency line, and as I said, there is StreetLink, which is the national helpline, will trigger a local response from the CCP. So I'm afraid I cannot accept your argument that you stood there and you couldn't do anything about a rough sleeper. I'm absolutely sorry. But as you say, sorry, I don't want you to clarify. I want you to come and talk to strategic housing tomorrow to tell us whether there's still a problem. So thank you for letting me raise that point of information, Madam Chairman. This is a district-wide policy. This is a district-wide officers. There is no area on Bromsgrove that we do not touch.
Councillor MacDonald, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, sir. Madam Chairman. In summing up, I'd just like to have a couple of comments. And one from Councillor Baxter, who seems to be in a world of fantasy. You were elected. You went through the political arguments and decisions to be a councillor. You get involved in political debates. But as a true independent, when it suits you, you say you sit on the fence. But you've fallen off the fence because you actually said time wasted over political decisions. This is not a time waste. This is not time wasting. This is making a point that austerity causes problems and consequences, and this is one of it. And I'm trying to get the district to join together to reach out to those people, not taxi drivers, those people such as residents who need to be told what to do. And when we listen to Councillor May, well, you know, I didn't know that Birmingham City wasn't part of the UK and wasn't affected by the austerity measures of Parliament. Yeah. I wasn't aware of this. This is news to me. I didn't know that they were affected by cutbacks. And I want to point out to Councillor May, not only is it rich, but it was only a short while ago that people of Birmingham threw out the Tory administration for a Labour one that cares for people. And I notice also Councillor May never mentioned who's in control in Malvern. And it ain't Labour who's in control in Malvern, is it? Those in control of Malvern aren't Labour. And yet we saw 2 deaths within a week on the streets of Malvern. So don't come misleading. Be honest. Your government have made political decisions, and one of them is austerity, which is a political decision that is causing the problems we've got now. But as one of the Conservatives over there said, he's concerned it's a district problem. I'm concerned in the district. I can only make votes in this chamber that concern the district. And I would like everybody to support this, so we reach out to those people who haven't got the know-how, haven't been signposted, so they know what to do. And I'll make one final point. A lot of those sleeping rough are ex-servicemen who've served this country well in all the little wars we've been in. And this is no way to treat them. We need to look after these people better. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, we'll put this now to the vote.
Sorry, Madam. I was actually named in that. Councillor MacDonald, if I said political decision, I apologise. It's a very important decision. It's the political arguing that I object to.
Right, we'll now put this motion to the vote. Those in favour of the motion, can you please show? Against? Any abstentions? The motion is agreed. And the next motion is from Councillor Flaw.
Can I just ask how much time we've got on this agenda item, please?
We've got 19 minutes, so can we please be as... only ask the questions you really want to do, because I would like to try and get all the motions through.
Can we go extend the time then, please? About the closing amendment.
Can we go with this one, please? Be as quick as we can. Councillor Bloor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Have you put an amendment forward?
I'd just like to take a vote and extend.
Can we see, Councillor Cleller, how we go with this? I can always extend the time then.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll crack on. Madam Chairman, the motion before you from myself and Councillor Mallet is about a scheme called Active Kitchen that is run by this council but receives significant funding by both me and Councillor Mallet as county councillors for Bromsgrove West and Bromsgrove South. I have to say, Madam Chairman, as someone who's come into the end of their time on this district council and shamefully is still the youngest member of this council, one of the things that hit me hardest as being a young, excitable person running for office was actually going into the homes of people in Sidewell and seeing firsthand the real problems and sufferings that they've suffered over the past 8 years. I have to be honest with people, in 2011 and 2012, the issue of holiday hunger was not something that came before me, nor was the use of food banks. It was not something that was on people's lips, and it was not the issues that people brought forward to me. Now, over Christmas, over holiday periods, and especially during half terms, the prospect of children in the areas that I represent and the area that Councillor Mallett represents go without food is one that horrifies me. The fact that the free school meal at their school, which doesn't obviously happen in half term, is denied them, and they don't have that guarantee of a hot meal, is something that has brought me into tears on several occasions that I've visited residents. These residents aren't unscrupulous, they aren't people wasting their money. Many of them run work, they're insecure work, 0-hour contracts. Many of them have been affected by benefit changes, and there has been a significant change in the way that we do benefits in this country over the last 8 years. And that's why, over half-term periods, I know teachers and local schools and people like myself have had to deliver food to people of Bromsgrove. Bromsgrove, whenever it appears on the television, is this affluent town, the little lodge fort that really lives here. It's not. There are deep pockets of deprivation in Bromsgrove. But unfortunately, because our media income is high and because our average house price is high, it's forgotten in many quarters. Now, Active Kitchen has been part of the way of trying to attack the problem of holiday hunger. Holiday hunger is an issue across the country, and over 200,000 meals were provided to children over the last summer period. Now, Active Kitchen, the programme that me and Councillor Mallett supported, it wasn't a holiday, it wasn't just a hunger about feeding people, it was about taking away the stigma of some of these children who don't get a meal at home, and giving them the opportunity to take part in sports and learn how to cook some of the food that they would have at the end of the day. And to be honest, we've talked about why people don't want to be councillors and why people might choose not to carry on or retire. And to be honest, the lack of ability to help some of these people is one of the reasons that I'm choosing to do something else, and which is why I feel that this motion is so important. There were 20 or 30 children who attended the Active Kitchen projects in the half terms of last year. And I have to say, seeing them, listening to them, and the work that was done by volunteers in this council was one of the most rewarding things I've actually been involved in as a councillor over the last 8 years. All this motion asks for is that we take a successful programme, give it a firm financial footing which it currently doesn't have, and look to roll it out across areas of highest need in our district. And then, of course, attack those known areas of deprivation in areas where they aren't deemed by the County Council of being in the highest deprivation areas. I'm not asking, I'm not asking for us to do something dramatic. I'm asking us to take a policy that works and will help fight holiday hunger and expand it and roll it out and make it successful to attract even more children and help more families. And I have to say, one of the things that really gets me when I sit down with some of these people and I deliver them food is that they're doing everything that they can to give their children the best start in life. They're having to forego meals, they're going to forego bills, they're having BDHT chase them over rent because of universal credit delays. And all they want to do is make sure that their children can have an active and successful life and reach the potential that they can do. And I've always thought if our fidelity as freedom and democracy in this chamber is to argue these things together and work together and make these things happen, then surely our code of our humanity is to make sure that our children, the children who don't have a choice about how much money is coming into their household, or how much benefits their mum or dad might receive, or whether their parents have a 0-hour contract, they should not be going hungry in our district. And I'll simply say that when the communications department commented on Active Kitchen, there were 2 comments from Councillor Sherring and there was a comment from Councillor Whittaker who was saying they both applauded the programme and the important work it was doing, saying it was addressing a serious underlying issue that is happening in our district, and it was a fun way of ensuring that children had food in their bellies and were able to get on with their lives. I would hope that Councillor Whittaker and Councillor Sherring meant those words that they said in their press release, that they do support this campaign, and that they will actually support the rollout of the programme that will actually make a difference to the lives of people in this district. We've talked a lot about hot air today, we've talked a lot about politics. This will make a difference, and I hope everyone can support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bull, do you have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support that and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Sherry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to thank the proposer and the seconder on this. It is a very important thing, and also young children all deserve a good meal. I wish to propose an amendment that we actually take this to ONS and put that on that agenda, because we need to know an awful lot more and ascertain and verify the issues in Bromsgrove itself. I am a member of Basement, as my colleague over there is, and I do know they do a lot for the young people and the parents, taking food out, taking all the lots of food in boxes for Christmas. We were very busy over Christmas. There were huge amounts sent out. But there was always those children, everyone misses, and families, people missing. And obviously the council obviously has met a lot of these people. So I would like to bring it to ONS so we can, as I said, ascertain and verify exactly how many we've got and where we go and how we can help these people more.
Do you have a seconder to your amendment? Thank you. Councillor Mallett, did you want to speak? Right, Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason that I'm inclined not to accept that amendment is that we're not talking about setting up a new policy. We're not talking about setting up a new way forward for this council. This is an existing programme that exists in your department and has had officers working on this for a very long time. Me and Councillor Mallett came at the end to help with the funding, to help with short-term funding gaps. We know that there's a need out there. We know that because we've done the work in the first place. It's why your department rolled out Active Kitchen in the first place. So we know that there's a problem. We know it's something that we've got to do better at. So my problem with going to ONS is that's further going to delay. What are we going to ask? Sure, we asked those questions when we did this in the first place. We're talking about putting it on a sustainable basis and then moving it forward. That to me seems like we're just building on the work that your officers have already done. Putting it down to ONS, which already has a pretty large workload as it is simply going to stop, it's going to delay us getting to those children who need these meals over the half term. So I don't accept that amendment because we've already done the work. And I don't think delaying this anymore will help the children we want to help. We've done the work, Councillor Sherry. We know it's needed. All we need to do is make sure this programme has a sure funding footing in the future, and we can expand it as we go. So, unfortunately, I don't accept that amendment, and I think perhaps your leadership are thinking again about that.
Councillor Mallett.
Thank you, Chairman. Speaking on the amendment rather than the motion, I, as the seconder of the motion, am also concerned about the amendment. I'm sure the amendment is meant in good faith and it's supposed to be a helpful amendment. But the thing is that this project has already been evaluated by Councillor Sherry's team. Councillor Sherry's team are already keen to continue with the project. Indeed, Councillor Sherry and Councillor Whittaker have already lauded the importance and the success of the project in the press. I'm not sure, and I say this as Chair of ONS, and I fundamentally believe in the importance of overview and scrutiny to looking at the activity of the Cabinet. But that's not really what this motion is about. This motion is about a project that we've already accepted makes a difference. It's about a project that's had good take-up. It's about a project that's helps children and young people in this district to live a better life, to have food in their bellies and to get on with their lives. And what we're suggesting is now essentially delaying making this project a permanent thing. It's about delaying giving that opportunity to children and young people. And that's not something I could support. So I would, and as I say, I'm sure the Cabinet member moved the amendment in good faith, but I would urge her to consider withdrawing that amendment so that we can get back to the question in hand as to how can we get this service out, how can we make sure that there's not a break in providing this service, because that's the risk that we may then go school holidays without having this service. So I would urge the Cabinet member to give some consideration to withdrawing this amendment so that we could come back to considering the main motion as were.
Councillor Mrs Sherry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I have misinterpreted what you said, and I have been heavily involved in other ways. And I do agree, I will withdraw that amendment. and I will ask the officers if they could work on this ASAP and bring it to Cabinet as soon as possible.
Councillor Raw, do you want to sum up? Oh, sorry. Teddy, can you put your hand up a bit, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, this is a good motion. It's a different motion to actually work out, get any data on, because I thought it was going to go on to strategic housing, to be honest. So I've trolled the web. One of the reasons that the suggestion to go to scrutiny is that I can't actually find any statistics for holiday home in Worcestershire. Never mind Bromsgrove, I can't find them. I've tried everywhere. I've spoken to the portfolio holder at county. I've emailed. I can never remember the poor lady's name. But anyway, the director of the public health in the county, and Francis Howard. Yes, thank you very much. And there doesn't seem to be any. I hate to say interest in holiday home, but I can't find any information. So hopefully, if this is going to come to cabinet, I could give you to a job. Go and find out not important, how widespread this problem is. I'm delighted to see that you are continuing the good work that Councillor Shannon and I started when I was the Sideball County Councillor. Councillor Shannon took to giving me his very enterprise idea about having an allotment. I had the good fortune to pinch his seat off him by a whole 7 votes, I think it was, wasn't it? So we did a sort of a more fork-to-fork type of thing down what is now being built on. And there was a very nice lady called Debbie Roberts from Epic, who, yes, Chris, I'm not going into that at all, set it up. And it ran quite nicely for a while, but then she disappeared and I changed seats. So I'm very sympathetic to this. And I'm looking forward to the results of the food insecurity bill, which is going to come up, I think it's the 25th of this month. When for those that don't know about it, it's a bill to require the government to monitor and report on food insecurity, to make provision for official statistics on food insecurity and for connected purposes. So it's a private member's bill, so who knows? I mean, Brexit is banging around the place at the moment. So I think this is worth backing, but I would like to task the two members, for goodness sake, can we have some information, some stats on it? Because honestly, I've trolled around for 2 or 3 days, and I can't find any, unless Councillor Malik says I'm looking in the wrong place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Whittaker.
I haven't put my hand up.
You must have been putting your other hand on it, Taylor. Councillor Mrs Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I fully support the motion. My only sort of favour, I was a little bit concerned about Councillor Taylor's comments about how widespread the problem is, because impacts can be measured in 2 different ways. It can either affect a lot of people in a small way, and that's a big impact, or it can affect a small number of people in a really big way. And I think that might very well be the case here. So please, don't just look at the number of children that are affected when the statistics are passed over, but also look at the impact that stopping those children being hungry is having upon them. Thank you.
Councillor Mallet.
Thank you, Chairman. Just perhaps in answer to Councillor Taylor's comments, I suppose my first suggestion would be I'd encourage Councillor Taylor perhaps to go and have a chat with some of the officers in Councillor Sherry's Councillor Sherry's responsibility area, because I'm sure they could attest, as Councillor Law has done as well, as to the impact this service has had for the young people and children that have been part of that service. And I think Councillor Baxter's right about impact and how we measure impact and what we mean by reach in terms of a service like this. But I'd also say something else, and it may be that Councillor Taylor has never been in the position of not being able to feed his children. I have met residents from my division on the county council, and when I've talked to them, they've explained that this is a challenge for them. It's a challenge to feed their children during the holidays. It's a challenge sometimes to clothe them. It's a challenge even for the basics for them to go to school with the right uniform. All of these things are real life challenges for parents and families in Bromsgrove. And as Councillor Bloor said, we may be seen as a wealthy and an affluent district, but these challenges exist for real life families. And the thing I would say to Councillor Taylor is that actually that's really, really difficult for a parent. That's something that a parent's not going to perhaps come and tell us. But actually having that service there, that service that takes away the stigma, that service that provides a worthwhile activity, the measure of the impact that service has is the people that come to it. It's the people that we're able to help through a service like that. Because that service takes away the stigma. It creates a space for children and young people. It creates a space for parents to talk as well. And actually by addressing these things, we will be making life better for children and young people in this district. So much as I'm sure Councillor Bloor and I would be very happy to come and talk to Cabinet, the information's there about the difference this service has already made. And I think Councillor Taylor's right, that this is an invisible problem. But part of the reason it's invisible is because of the stigma that surrounds it. There are parents who are trying to do the very best by their children. They're often going without food themselves, often going out without essentials to their house to try and make a difference to their children. And this is a way that we as a council can help them to make a little bit of difference to children in this district. I would urge members to support.
Councillor Taylor, you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Right, because I've been named several times, but I agree with what Councillor Manners is saying, and I think Councillor Baxter has misunderstood me. As a father of two girls, I would be absolutely horrified if my children were going hungry, and I have every sympathy with anybody that is faced with that horrible, horrible situation. And I think you're absolutely right. It is the invisible problem that we've got, and I also take on board what it says. I think I've probably been looking in the wrong place. I've been talking to our strategic housing, and we've been everywhere to sort of have a look at this. So I'd be quite happy to go and chat to some of the officers to find out what the problems are. Because in rich areas, especially the ward that I cover, there are long drives, there are big houses, and you don't know what financial position people are in. So I think, as Councillor Mallett sort of says, we should back this back this motion, and I will be delighted to do a little bit more research and find out which officers are dealing with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Bloor, is there anything else you wish to sum up with? I don't think
No,
it's right.
we've got other important motions. Let's move to the vote.
Right. Can we put this motion to the vote, please? Those in favour of the motion? I think that's unanimous. Anyone against? No abstentions. The motion is passed. Right, we've used our 1 hour up, so I'm now coming to the council. We have 2 motions left for discussion. I'm going to ask to have a vote on this, whether we extend the time to cover these 2 motions, or whether we ask whether they could be deferred to the next meeting. So those in favour of extending the time for the motions? Those against extending?
Part-time. Yeah, well.
What about cross-party cooperation?
Any abstentions? I move therefore that it was voted that we do not extend the time. Thank you, and thank you very much for your attendance tonight.
What about